All right, we'll call this meeting to order. Will the clerk please call the roll? Presiding as clerk tonight will be Brian Pudler.
Commissioner Gillette?
Here.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Here.
Commissioner Bigforce?
Here.
Commissioner Priscilli?
Here.
Commissioner Lyons? Here. Commissioner Neville? Here. Commissioner Ahern?
Here.
Mr. Chairman, that is the roll for staff tonight, just me, Brian Pudler, senior planner.
All right. Hope you're, make sure your microphone, Mr. Pudler.
My mistake,
Thank
sorry
you.
about that.
So what we're going to do first is we're going to take up minutes and communications, and then we're going to move down to items 13 and 14. So first up is minutes, Mr. Pudlick.
We have minutes for 3 different meetings, one for December 4th, which was the regular meeting, and then the 2 special meetings that were held for 1700 Asylum, December 11th and December 13th.
Thank you. And so far as the regular meeting, I can call a vote on this, but I will abstain from voting because I was not present. However, who were the members that were present for that? Yes. Lyons, Grisilli. Oh, thank you. All right, so everybody here but me. No, sorry, Gordon. Gordon, you were there? Okay, so Don, you are, okay. So Don and I will, John and I will abstain. Okay. At least, is that correct? Were you absent for the December?
I thought it was at the 4th. Yeah, it's the 11th and the 13th I was online for, but I wasn't.
So the 4th was a regular meeting, not?
Yeah, you weren't here for the 4th.
Oh, was I not here on the 4th?
You were here for the first of the 1700
Oh,
special
those
meetings.
special
which
meetings.
Yeah,
is
yeah.
That
late
was on the
November.
28th.
All right, so
Yeah.
seated on this will be Mr. Bighorst, Ms. Gillette, Mr. Kaplan, and Ms. Grisilli. So do we have a motion on this item?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, let me try your minds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? One abstention. Thank you. So next up then would be the minutes of the December 11th meeting. Seated on that will be myself, Mr. Bighorst, Ms. Gillette, Mr. Kaplan, and Ms. Grisilli. Yes. All right. So do we have a motion on that item?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Do we-
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
None?
Seeing none, let me try your minds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? I would note, let me just quickly note, though, I believe, Mr. Lyons, you were present for the December 11th one, were you not?
Yeah, we should take it offline, because you and I had a conversation, I don't want to put anybody in the spot here, but yeah, effective.
All right, well, we can discuss it later. All right, so item number 13 then. Seated are myself, Mr. Bighorst, Ms. Gillette, Mr. Kaplan, and Ms. Grisilli. Do we have a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
1C.
Second.
Any discussion?
None?
Seeing none, let me try your minds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Item number 2, Mr. Pudlick.
Mr. Chairman, I was under the impression you wanted to jump down to item
Let's
number...
go to 2, and then we'll go to the other 2.
Fair enough. So this item is a request by the applicant to withdraw the application 1425 for 1416 Oakwood Avenue on the basis that the applicant decided that they did not want to, in fact, open an indoor recreation facility and that they wanted to open a more traditional restaurant. And so they it no longer necessitated the need for the SUP.
So the nature of this motion then would be to accept the withdrawal. Is that
That's
correct? All right. And so 1, 2, 3, 4. So seated on this will be Mr. Actually, we'll go down the line. So we'll start with Mr. Neville on this item. Do we have a motion on this item? Do we have any questions? Yes, Ms. Gillette.
I just have a comment that my husband is heartbroken at the pool tables not going in, if that is the case. That's all.
He just wants the time to be reversed. And what was it? Plan B before that? Yeah. Okay.
Just heartbroken.
Because I remember the basement pool tables at that place.
Yes.
All right. So, Mr. Neville, be seated. Do we have a motion on this item?
Cypress arms.
Cypress Arms. That's what it is.
Cypress arms. I was trying to think of it.
I kept saying arms, but I wasn't going to say it.
I'll make a motion to
Look at that. We
accept
did
the
that together,
request for
guys.
withdrawal.
Yeah. All right, do we have a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion to accept the request to withdraw.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
None.
Seeing none, let me try your minds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. All right. So now we are going to move to items number 13 and 14. I believe we'd have to vote on these separately. So myself, Ms. Gillette, Mr. Kaplan, Ms. Grisilli, and Mr. Binkhorst were polled as to whether we wish to take these items up today. And the feeling here is that we do not wish to take these up today, and we want a little more time to deliberate over these items, or review these items on our own before we actually do deliberation. So I have, with Mr. Pudlick has set up a special meeting option for us on the 17th, so 2 weeks from now. It would be here, what time?
7 p.m.
7 p.m. And so that is an option where we could have a special meeting and we could, and then the nature of the motion then would be to postpone to that date?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, so we would have to take these up separately. So for the purposes of discussion, do we have a motion on item number 13? This is the petition from the intervening parties.
I move we postpone till the special meeting
On January
on
17th?
January 17th.
All right.
At 7 p.m.
At 7 p.m.
At
That-
7
That's
p.m.?
fine. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on it? Yes.
Because this is on the interveners petition, could you, Mr. Public, give us an overview? I don't see the interveners sitting in the audience, so this may not be a surprise to them. But we will hear their petition at that time?
All of their testimony has already been provided as part of the public hearing, and so your determination on their petition to intervene is going to be based on the record at this point.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And you'll be provided additional guidance by Corporation Counsel.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Seated on this vote will be Mr. Lyons. Any other discussion? Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. Let me try your minds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Item is postponed to the special meeting on January.
I'm sorry, was there a motion and a second on that? item?
Yes.
Was there? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, there was.
Yes.
I made the motion.
First.
Motion and a
sorry.
second.
Second.
Yeah, Ms. Gillette and then Mr. Kaplan.
Ah, yes, that was on 13. Got it. Yep.
I
So-
do have a question.
Yes.
Point of order, shouldn't Mrs. Grisilli be voting on this?
The vote
since
is merely
she-
to postpone to the special meeting, so it's not, I don't believe it's limited to the members.
Okay.
So it was
All right.
1, 2,
All right.
3, 4, and then we needed a fifth, so Mr. Lyons was our fifth vote on, just on the postponement,
Yeah,
right?
no, I understood.
Just on the postponement. Yeah, so that's a procedural vote.
But
Yeah,
there's procedural.
all right.
Yeah, it's a
okay.
procedural vote.
Okay.
Yeah. because-
Sorry, I should have clarified that, because that question came up in my head as well.
All right.
But it's just a
Okay.
procedural vote. So Ms. Grisilli will be seated on the procedural vote on item number 14, however. So do we have a motion on item number 14?
I'll make a motion to postpone deliberations on item 14 till a special meeting on January 17th at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Do we have a second on this?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
None.
All right, let me try your minds. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed. Item is set down for our special meeting on January 17th, 2024.
Will those be live streamed? That meeting be live streamed?
Yes, we will make sure that that's the case.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
All right. So moving back then, we're still prior to public hearings open up, so let's get to new business. Item number 3, Mr. Pudlick.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is for 289 South Main Street, SUP 1430, the town of West Hartford, requesting approval of a special use permit to improve and modernize the existing driving range at the Rockledge Golf Course, which will include the addition of up to 20 covered tee stations, along with a small snack bar and restroom facility. This is submitted for TPZ receipt tonight and suggest required public hearing be scheduled for February 5th.
All right, so this is a required public hearing. Recommended date is February 5th, 2024. Do we have a motion on this item?
Make a motion.
I would like to make a motion.
Lead.
Surprises, no.
I'm going to take things out of order just for Ms. Grisilli's sake, so she will be seated on this item. So we have Ms. Grisilli has made the motion.
I would like to make a motion that we move this to a public hearing to be scheduled for February 5th.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, let me try your minds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Item is set down for February 5th. Item number 4, Mr. Pudlick.
1563 Asylum Avenue, SUP 1433 of FHI Studio, on behalf of the City of Hartford, requesting approval of a special use permit to make site improvements to the existing horticultural garden and adjacent walkways within Elizabeth Park, and again submitted for receipt tonight, and suggest required public hearing be scheduled for February 5th.
Thank you. Seated on this item will be Mr. Neville. This is a required public hearing as suggested for February 5th, 2024. Do we have a motion on this item?
I move we set for public hearing on February 5th.
Do we have a second on this item?
Second.
Motion,
I can't.
yeah, sorry, Mr. Neville will be seated on this item. Second, any discussion? Let me try your minds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, item is set down for February 5th. But I like your moxie. Item number 5, Mr. Pudlick.
Item number 5 is for 170 Kingswood Road. This is going to be a SUP 1434 of Centerbrook Architects on behalf of the Kingswood Oxford School, requesting approval of a special use permit to construct an approximately 3,600 square foot addition and new outdoor patio with associated stormwater landscaping and decorative lighting site improvements to the existing Conklin Library and Mead dining buildings within the KO campus. Again, submitted for receipt tonight, and suggest required public hearing be set for February 5th.
Thank you. Seated on this item will be Mr. Lyons. Do we have a motion on this item?
So moved.
All right. Do we have a second? And sorry, with that, I should say, is the motion to set it down for February 5th, 2024?
My apologies, yes.
Nope,
yes.
thank you. I skipped the practice of the first three, so I threw off. All right, so a motion to set it down for February 5th, 2024. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, let me try your minds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, item is set down for February 5th, 2024. Item number 6, Ms. Crisili will be seated on this item. Mr. Pudlick.
1515 Boulevard, this is SUP 1435 of the Town of West Hartford, requesting approval of a special use permit to add play or dugout structures to the existing softball field at Norfeld Field. Again, submitted for receipt tonight. Suggest required hearing be scheduled for February 5th.
Okay, this is suggested required public hearing scheduled for February 5th, 2024. Do we have a motion on this item?
I move we set for public hearing on February 5th at 7 o'clock.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, let me try our minds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed,
Aye.
item is set down for February 5th. Item number 7, Mr. Neville will be seated.
425 Oakwood Avenue, SUP 1436 of the Town of West Hartford, requesting approval of a special use permit to add play or dugout structures to each of the 4 existing softball fields located within the Sterling Athletic Field Complex. Submitted for TPZ receipt January 3rd. Suggest required public hearing be scheduled for February 5th.
Thank you, Mr. Pudlick. Item number 7, do we have a motion on this item? Suggested required public hearing is February 5th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to set it for public hearing on February 5th.
And Mr. Neville will be seated on this item. Let us say that already. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion?
None.
All right. Seeing none, let me try your minds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Item is set down for February 5th, 2024, 520, with Mr. Neville seated. We are past 7:15, so we can kick right into our public hearings. So we're going to start with item number 8, Mr. Pudlick.
Yes, so let me just remind the commission that the legal notice for this item was read into the record at the December 4th item when it was opened and immediately continued. So I'll just go ahead and read the agenda item here. So this is for 119 Flagg Road, application IWW 1217 of the Town of West Hartford, requesting approval of an inland wetland and watercourses permit to conduct certain regulated activities which may have an adverse impact on a wetland regulated area. The applicant proposes to replace an existing bridge spanning Hart Meadow Brook, along with the bridge's supporting abutments within Westmore Park. The work is proposed within a wetland area and immediately adjacent to the watercourse. And again, this was submitted for receipt on the 6th, determined potentially significant, sent for public hearing on the 4th, and it was continued on the 4th to this evening.
All right. Is the applicant ready to proceed? And while the applicant's getting ready, I'm just going to go through our rules of engagement very, very quickly. So those presenting or commenting should approach the podium, state your name and address for the record. Please spell your name. Commissioners might ask questions during the testimony of the applicant. All questions and comments will be directed through the chair and only after recognition by the chair, including follow-ups. If feasible, the chair will have the members hold their questions until the end of the applicant's presentation or the end of a logical break in the applicant's presentation. Following the testimony of the applicant, the public will have a chance to comment about the current application in the following order. First, those wishing to speak in favor of the application, then those wishing to speak in opposition to the application, then finally those wishing to speak but neither in favor nor in opposition. Upon conclusion of the public's comments, the applicant will have an opportunity to address the opinions expressed. And then on conclusion of the applicant's rebuttal, and if there are no further questions from the commissioners, the public hearing will be closed. It is the practice of the commission to render a decision on an application on the same night following all items on the public meeting agenda. So any interested parties are welcome to stay and listen. And finally, if everyone could just set their phones to silent or vibrate. With that, is the applicant ready to proceed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Helen Rubino Turco. I'm the Director of Leisure Services and Social Services for the town of West Hartford. And we have two items to talk about this evening. They're both very similar. So I will speak to the first item, Westmore Park's bridge replacement, and then we'll just play it again, Sam, for the second one because they're very similar. But we'll go through each one individually so that we can make sure we have addressed all your questions. There is a bridge at Westmore Park. It spans the Hart Meadow stream, and it was built in the 1970s. As you may know, Westmore Park was donated to the town in 1974 by the Hunter family, and they donated it to the town as a nature preserve, along with a modest endowment. And the interest on that endowment helps fund the infrastructure of the park, its operations, as well as revenue from camps and programs and fundraisers and donations. So this bridge was existing there, was probably built in the 70s, and it is a main pathway to connect the eastern part of the park with the western, more wild nature section of the park. This is a shallow tributary of the Trout Brook, and it's the primary connection, as I said, between the agricultural side and the western side. So we propose to replace this bridge because after all of these years, it is a little rundown. So it has some rot, it has some erosion that has gone on. So what we intend to do is remove the bridge and replace it with some slight improvements in pretty much exactly the same spot. We expect no trees are going to be removed. No permanent direct wetlands impacts will be made. It will be located, right now it's on I think it's a cement base. It will be on an engineered abutment and the bridge materials will match the existing, the concrete and the wood. And all the plans that are in place with the necessary erosion controls. It's likely to take a couple of days to complete this project, and we'll do it during a low stream season. So that typically happens in late August when it's fairly dry. We have Tom Daly, who can give you details about the plans. He is manager of civil engineering at SLR, so he'll be here to kind of walk us through the plans. And then we also have George Logan from REMA is our soil scientist, and he provided a detailed analysis of the soils in the area, and he can speak regarding the wetlands in that area. So as I said, This proposed bridge is really intended to match the existing conditions with some improvements. It's long overdue, but we do want to make sure that this is a structure that will be able to service the hundreds of thousands, actually, school children that visit this park every year, and also visitors in general, but it'll also help us with accessibility. And that's been a focus of our department for the last 10 years, is really improving accessibility to our public parks. And with that, I'll introduce Tom Daly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Yes, for the record, Tom Daly, a professional engineer with SLR Consulting. We were hired by the town of West Hartford to evaluate this bridge. It's fairly easy for me, considering all three of my kids have been camp counselors at Westmore Park for I don't know how long. But it's a very important bridge, both to the program and getting, as Helen said, getting access to the rear portion. It links up to many walking trails. So the first thing we went out there, we did a site investigation, and what we found was the bridge itself has done a wonderful job. As Helen said, it's been there since the 70s. It just has run its course. There was no, major failure that's requiring this to be replaced. It's, it just, the wood is starting to see, I was hearing it from my girls this summer, where the railings were getting a little wobbly and such. And also what we found was at the site inspection is the bridge abutments are basically just sitting on concrete blocks. And if you look at the plans we provided, there's been a lot of underscoring and a lot of scour. Those blocks are starting to rotate into the stream, and that's not positive. The bridge itself is a timber bridge, pretty straightforward, a traditional design that you would see in any national park or a state park, but it's sitting on basically almost telephone poles, and they're just sitting on this on this concrete block. As Helen said, we're essentially matching in kind, same exact location, same exact width, except we are making improvements. A couple of improvements we're making is we're going to set it on steel beams instead of wood beams. We feel that has greater longevity, and over time you can just replace the wood deck if that gets worn, and we expect that to last. But the most important improvement we're making is we're putting in much deeper foundations. And we're setting those back farther from the stream. So we're actually opening up the throat on here and getting away from the stream edge. We'll be going down almost 3 feet. Now, as Helen said, we expect those footings to only take a couple days. It's a couple, they're small, a couple scoops of material. That material will actually be put in a truck and taken right off site. We don't need any of that excess material. And after that, it's just timber framing and a new structure. It's fairly straightforward construction. As Helen indicated, it would be expected to be installed during the low flow. This stream actually doesn't have a lot of flow in it. During the summer months, it may be only a couple inches. So it's a well-suited stream. And also there is additional access where the construction, if they have to get on the other side, there's other dry access so they don't have to cross the stream. There's other parts they can do that. But we expect it to be a fairly simple construction method. Once they get those abutments in, they drop the steel in, and after that, it's just putting timber down on that. We do show erosion controls along the stream. Big part of that is during the low flow element. But we will do some straw wattles and silt fence along, so we just don't get any silt in there. But once those abutments go in, there's really virtually no disturbed area as part of the plan. We did receive town engineering comments and town planning comments. I believe I saw the letter that we've addressed all the planning comments. Engineering comments, we gave a response to each one of those. And then kind of late breaking, we received, I believe, a letter from Director of Community Services, Dwayne Stagg, saying that the bridge meets the floodplain regulations in terms of the town of West Hartford. So I think we've checked virtually every box on that. With that, I'm going to ask George to come up, and then the three of us will be available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, George Logan, Reme Ecological Services, registered soil scientist, certified professional wetland scientist. So my involvement here started back in July 18th of 2022 when I was out in the field and I delineated the wetlands just upstream and downstream of the existing pedestrian bridge. Subsequently, on December 9th, you received the report. And what I try to do here is to give you sort of the typical information that you folks are used to seeing, describing how the wetland delineation was done and, pursuant to general statutes. I gave you an inventory of what's there. I gave you some aerial photographs. I gave you some photographs of the area. As has been said, we have I would call it probably more of a semi-perennial stream than a perennial stream. It's relatively shallow. Even July when I saw it, again, that's kind of starting into the low flow period. And you can see from the pictures there's just a little bit of water coming through. We have a man-made pond on the upstream side. We have a man-made pond on the downstream side. And then this little section of stream that we have here. The resources are pretty nice, actually. There's some nice diversity out there as far as the cover types are concerned. And I saw a bunch more than I didn't put in the report. I was enamored by a gray blue heron on the far side that was having fun with the green frogs. And then I reviewed the plans, and my conclusion was that, especially with what Tom just said, doing this in the low flow period, making sure we have the erosion control, and obviously taking care and making sure that everything is working during the construction period, which is relatively narrow. I don't think that's going to be any long-term adverse impact on the wetlands, and that's the gist of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Logan. Any comment before questions? No? All right. Commissioners, Mr. Latt.
This is not the application specifically, but can you explain, generally speaking, the outline of where the water in the man-made ponds comes from, particularly the one to the north, and across the street it's MDC flood control? I'm just curious as to how everything connects, where you've got this little neck that dries up during the summer, looking kind of at the systemic picture.
That's a good question. Now, that's not something that I provided with this report. What I usually do is, you've heard this before, there's a very nice utility from the USGS called Stream Stats. And it's pretty robust, and it basically shows you all the streams, and you can kind of click and get a lot of different information as to, impervious surfaces and urbanization and all kinds of things that fisheries people like to see. And so the watershed for this particular stream starts on the north side of Flagg, and maybe there's another 30, 40 acres there, and that's it. And that's the entire watershed, and then it comes through here. So I don't know what's going on the other side, but that's all I can tell you is that the watershed's not too far up from there.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Pellet, the watershed for that area, the 30, 40 acres you cite, is up Old Mountain Road, isn't it? Across Mountain Road where they're doing at Albany,
So
at least in part. I mean, just have it.
Generally, you're correct. So there's a culvert underneath Flagg. It goes, through those kind of condos, and then ultimately it goes towards the old Glen Hill Nursery and heads up there.
Right.
And one of the reasons I think is because you have very steep topography on the mountain. It's a flashy storm. Like I live up there. When the storm comes down, those streams are running, and then after that, it's a trickle.
There's nothing
It's
there.
coming off the slope. There's not a large, as George may describe, there's not a large watershed, wetland or watershed that's kind of trickling this out, and that's why you're seeing probably this does flow pretty good after when we got rain the other day, but then it goes away, and
Right.
it just tends to be more of a trickle, probably more just groundwater being fed out of the mountain on that. But there's just not that big wetland corridor that feeds and gets more water down in here, more on a regular basis.
And
And then your question also was, where does the water go afterward? So it goes through that wider pond at the bottom of the hill. It goes under the bridge. It continues through Westmore Park. So Westmore Park is 52 acres. And then there's 110 of MDC slash, flood control land that we oversee. So this water goes through another kind of wider pond at the end of the Westmore property, and then it goes towards the Bugby Dam and it joins that tributary of the Trout
Right there
Brook.
through Bugby
Right,
Woods?
yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And they're great turtles in the spring.
And the wildlife is fantastic.
It is.
Obviously.
It is. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Other questions? Mr. Bakhorst.
I had one question regarding after you remove the concrete abutments. Is any restoration or mitigation work warranted?
Once again, for the record, Tom Daly. So what the process is the current, I wouldn't even call them abutments. They're just like concrete blocks. Those will be picked out. Then we'll be excavating down and then building the forms and building up. Yes, around the perimeter, we will be putting more like a wetland seed mix to restore any disturbed area. But the footings are so small, we don't expect a lot of disturbed area. And that's one of the reasons, working with Brian, we expect just put in the truck, take it away, because actually the bigger disturbance would actually be having a pile. We do have a small area to the right of the bridge where we're doing a little floodplain compensation. Essentially, we're building a rain garden right there. And that area, so the expectation is, yeah, you're going to seed it with a native seed mix. It's not expected to be lawn. If you go out there, it's very natural, and we want to restore that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
If I could actually just follow up on what you were just talking about, just because I think the only question I had was, I go through these and I see the construction sequence, but what I don't see in the application is what type of equipment you plan on using, considering this is a water course.
Well, ultimately, and I think that was one of the comments we had, we will be putting in the plans and specs or the bid package that the contractor needs to provide a very detailed construction sequence, the equipment. It's hard for me to predict the type of equipment that they're going to do. But, these abutments are only 3 feet wide and 3 feet deep. They're not that. So I think you're going to look at a mid-size excavator because they want to get in and out of there, big enough to put the material in the thing. But once you're going to get mid-size excavator, after that, it's just like an excavator just set the beams. And after that, you just bring in a truck down there to bring lumber in to put it in.
And it's essentially either a path or a roadway that, right? It's like sort of a packed.
Correct.
It's
right
like a
now,
hard
it's
pack.
that's the main access through the back.
Yeah.
So if you go through the back, the trucks will come off the back parking lot. If you know where it's a log cabin, there's basically a stone dust path.
Yep.
They'll come down through there, and then that's where they'll start their
Okay.
work. So luckily, we don't have to run across any grass areas that we're going to rip up.
Because when, like if we have an application on the pond, right, on Wood Pond, right, we get pretty picky about what kind of equipment to bring it down there into there. I mean, this is, in this case, there's literally a drivable path that brings you right to where you need to be. So, I mean, our concerns often are just driving over, planted areas. So,
and actually, Brian had similar comments.
Okay.
So we talked through that and how we would bring in through the access through that existing, and that actually it's just not a walking path. That's what the farm staff uses for their own maintenance. And this bridge is designed to have like small like gator or golf carts to go across because but it wasn't designed for like big equipment because, as I said, there's dry access just down grade and they don't have to go over this.
okay, that's
Thank
mine. Mr. Kaplan.
Yes.
I guess I'm just curious how they're going to deal with the far side. Because it's a 26-foot span according to the plans.
So farther.
How does the equipment reach? Especially a mid-size excavator doesn't have the reach to get to the far side.
There's another crossing down below that has a culvert that you don't have to cross the stream. So what they're going to do is they'll do one side and then they'll walk the equipment down through the trails and come around on the other side. And that's how they maintain the thing. That's the nice thing about this. It's not, yes, it's big enough span. You probably could not do it with a reach, but they have dry access so they don't have to cross the stream.
And just to be clear, this is Helen Rubino Turco. Between the entrance to Westmore Park and the community gardens to the west on Flagg Road, there's a gate that you can enter Westmore Park. and it's on the west side of the stream. So you can drive through there. We've driven vehicles through there for mowing that far field from time to time. So it's just a question of timing so that it's dry enough that it's an easier access.
And that's why we did not need to put in part of this application a water crossing as an approval, because we had those two other alternate access points.
Got it.
If,
Mr. Kaplan.
if the intention is to do it when it's dry in August, but we happen to have like a really wet period of time that's uncharacteristic, sort of the way we did in July, I'm assuming, you know, we can be flexible. Is the intention to do it this year, or like August 2024, or
Funding dependent?
It is funding dependent. So this project and most projects at Westmore Park, actually all projects at Westmore Park, are funded by the Westmore Park, the Westmore Park Fund, and it depends on additional funding and grants that we apply for. We do have some funding in place, but not all of the funding in place at this time. But we do expect that to be able to do this funding-wise at the end of this summer. We haven't yet selected a contractor, so there's still some hoops that we need to go through.
And we will write in the spec that the contractor not only has to watch the weather, but and move his equipment accordingly. The benefit of Westmore Park is we have on-site town staff that is able to manage that and pay attention to it very closely.
The August timeframe end of August timeframe is ideal because the camps have completed, but the eco-venture program that starts with the public schools hasn't begun yet. I wanted to let you know, and this is, I believe that we've mentioned this before, but Westmore Park in the last couple of years has gone from having eco-venture programs, that's the nature programs that the public schools students, they used to come, 2 different grades would come to Westmore Park. Now every public school child, K through 5, comes every year to Westmore Park. So this is an important part of that access.
Mr. Lyons.
Couple questions, Ms. Rubino. Thank you, first of all, for the presentation. Does the bridge, this is probably outside the purview of wetlands, but I'm going to ask, at this point, does it present any safety hazard for the kids prior to the reconstruction?
No,
Okay.
it's run its course.
Okay.
It's starting to show some wear and tear, but it was still fully used through all camp season and everything, and it's still being used today.
Good, wonderful, thank you. Second question, I just want to make sure, I know you said this in the remarks, I'm looking at the plan. How many footing holes, how many footings total are there going to be?
It's 2 footings, so
Just
one
2.
one on each side, and there'll be, it's like a count. They're not piers. It'll be like a big slab of concrete, but it's one on each side.
Okay,
Yep.
great. All right, I think that's everything, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Does the applicant have anything further before we go to public comment? Nope. All right. So we're going to go to public comment. First, those wishing to speak in favor of the application. Seeing none, those wishing to speak in opposition to the application. Seeing none, those wishing to speak but neither in favor nor in opposition. Let the record reflect there are no members of the public here to speak on this item. Does the applicant have anything further before we close this hearing? The applicant is indicating no, so this hearing is closed. Next up is item number 9, Mr. Pudlick.
Mr. Chairman, similarly to the prior application, this item was also opened on December 5th and immediately continued to January 3rd, which is tonight. So the the legal notice was already read at that time, so I'll just read the agenda item. which is for 173 Mountain Road, IWW 1218 of the town of West Hartford, requesting approval of an inland wetland and watercourses permit to conduct certain regulated activities which may have an adverse impact on a wetland regulated area. The applicant proposes to replace an existing bridge spanning the stream that outlets into McGovern Pond, along with the bridge's supporting abutments within Spicebush Swamp Park. Work is proposed within a wetland area and immediately adjacent to the watercourse, and this again was submitted on November 6th, determined potentially significant, set for public hearing on the 4th, and then open and immediately continued to this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Pudlick. Is the applicant ready? Thank you, Mr. Pudlick. Is the applicant ready to proceed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Rinse and repeat. Spicebush Swamp is a park on Mountain Road. It's about 30 acres. And at one point in its history, a pond was created, a man-made pond was created, and it's called McGovern Pond. So the stream flows through the, where does it come from? It comes from Buena Vista. It comes past Stop and Shop. It flows through the neighborhood, and it comes to McGovern Pond, and then it continues under Mountain Road. It goes through Mooney's Woods and eventually somewhere, through Fern Ridge Park. So that's sort of the course of this stream. It's a branch of the Trout Brook, but I don't think it's named. We could work on that, though. For a fee, I will name it if you're interested. And the pond is created, there's a little diversion to the stream. There's a small flow that continues. But basically, most of the stream is diverted into this pond and then re-diverted back and joins the stream. This is also West Hartford's first trout park. It was so named 2 years ago. And so it's very popular with fishermen and families. It's the topography of the park is not just wetlands and a pond and the swamp. It's also got hills and a variety of topography. And most people just think that it's this pond at the edge of the road and that's it. But there's 30 acres back there. It's pretty robust. What we plan to do is replace the footbridge that goes from the parking lot. There's a field and then there's a bridge. And that bridge crosses the small diversion stream, and it brings you to the side of the pond. And that bridge is failing. It was built in the 70s again, probably maybe even the late 60s. And it is also failing. It sits on a little cement border on either side. It's narrow. And what we'd like to do is increase the handicapped accessibility and the accessibility in general to provide a little bit, basically the same size, but just a little bit in better condition, so that people can easily travel from the pasture, the green lawn, over a bridge to the pond side, the side of the pond. And then there's two other small footbridges that we'll replace. They are not anchored to anything. They're just, but they're also falling apart. So we're going to be doing some other modest changes, but nothing that is significant. This is a significant project. And so basically, we have Tom Daly from SLR to explain the construction of the bridge, the design of the bridge, all of the mitigation program plans that we have. And we also have George Logan from REMA to discuss the soil. And then we can answer any questions that you have. So I will hand it over to Tom Daly.
Thank you, Helen. For the record, Tom Daly with SLR. And if you've been by Spice Bush, a lot of good stuff has happened. The application probably before you a couple of years ago was the pond dredging. And as I drive by it twice a day, the activity in the park has really increased in a positive way. I see people fishing out there all the time, families. Actually see people practicing fly fishing and everything. It's everything. And I believe it's which organization is doing some non-native plant removal? Is that the garden?
The West Hartford Garden.
West Hartford Garden Club is doing a wonderful job out there. They're removing non-native materials. And as Helen I used to always think it was the pond, but I walked the trail. There's actually some wonderful walking trails in the back that actually have more topography than I expected. But the pond, it's kind of a missed park, but with the investment the town has put together and with the investment of the public in terms of the non-native species, there's some really great stuff happening. But the bridge is a really important access point that's across there. And as I said, it's really, once again, it's not failing for any storm event or any vandalism or any particular thing. It's just run its course. 70s to today is we got a real good run with this bridge. As Helen indicated, it's not over the pond or the mainstream. It's just the bypass channel or the diversion panel. So if you ever drive Spice Bush and you see those massive rainstorms with it going over the spillway, that's not in this area. That comes through the pond area. But it's still a very important part to it. And I understand the tributary is really to allow less sediment to get into McGovern Pond, so it's still a very important element. But it's a much smaller bridge than Westmore Park. This is just a pedestrian bridge. We're only spanning a much shorter distance, but the features and the design are very similar. So in this particular one, we're only spanning from abutment to abutment is 24 feet. But we're still trying to make those same improvements. So if you see from the graphic here, the red is the abutments. They're very close to the stream. They're starting to small in. They're tiny little squares. They're really not supporting the bridge as it should. We'll be putting much more robust, fully engineered abutments. Once again, we're pulling those back. We're trying to give the stream more breathing room, and so those abutments don't get scour and erosion over time. By pulling those back, we just allow us to do that. Once again, we're looking at steel timbers to just get longevity out of it, and then it'll be a timber. And we're really looking to use the same materials, the same style, so when you're on a town park, you're kind of seeing the same things throughout. And also it allows the maintenance staff to stock some of those materials and become familiar with those bridges if they need maintenance over time. This abutment and this excavation is even quicker because it's just that much smaller. This one is only it's only 5 feet wide. So, but one thing we are trying to do is as you come off the parking lot and through the lawn, we want to make sure we get handicap accessibility so you can get to that other side. And where you get to the other side is where you do the fishing. So it's really, this is a very important access point. There is another way to get over there, but this is the most important one. So once again, this one would be, once again, scheduled during a dry flow period. Construction on this one would be even quicker because it's just that much smaller. Once again, I do think it would be an excavator to set those, excavate for those foundations. You build their forms, pour the concrete, and after that, you might use an excavator to set the steel beams, but after that, it's just timber framing, basically, on there. We are outside the stream, as we are with Westmore, so we're continuing to pull this out of thing. We just think that allow the stream to breathe and not have. But the abutments will be going down much deeper. We're going down about 4 feet, where the ones out there today are probably only 6-8 inches into the grade, and they're just not stable. With that, I'll ask George to come up. Thank you.
Hello again, George Logan for the record, the Reme Ecological Services. Again, similar time back in July 2022, we delineated the wetlands, the edge of the wetlands here. We basically are dealing with a stream channel and its banks. At one point, this whole area had more of a characteristic of a wetland, but over the decades, things have changed here. This little channel, believe it or not, if you look back at the old aerial photographs going all the way back to 1934, was the main channel. And then when the pond was built, it got diverted there, and this was kind of more or less abandoned to be more of an overflow. It's fairly wet. I'd still probably call it semi-perennial to perennial, depending on the year. Again, the report that was provided, dated December 11th, gives you the typical characteristics. The soils here, because of the disturbance, are we call them fluviquents or udifluvents, and those are sort of alluvial soils, but they can range from poorly drained to moderately well drained. Usually, in a situation like this, the rest of the site is pretty gravelly, sort of an outwash situation. The vegetative diversity is fairly good. There are some invasives, and I'm glad to hear that these are being taken care of. That's wonderful work, and man, that's not easy work. It has to happen quite often, actually. So I looked at the plans, and obviously this is a lot easier to swallow as to what's going on here. And so my conclusion, as said in the report, was that with diligent inspection and maintenance of erosion sedimentation controls, there should be no long-term adverse impact on the wetland resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Logan.
So this is Helen Rubino Turco again. In conclusion, we're replacing an existing bridge pretty much in the same spot with improvements without disturbing, as you've heard, with minimal disturbing of the area surrounding it. And I did want to have another shout out for the community gardens and the work that the West Hartford Garden Club is doing. Every Monday they go to Spice Bush and work for 2 hours removing invasives, and then I get a little email telling me there's a pile of debris, and I contact Public Works and they remove it. But it's been a wonderful collaboration with them, as well as with the West Hartford Tree Action Group. The Tree Action Group also has been planting trees there up in the woods, and we're in the process of creating a tree walk. So we'll be labeling all the trees and having a tree walk in that park. It's the second park. We've already got one at Westmore Park. So we're very excited about these additional improvements, but this is an important access. You can't get to that other part without going across this bridge. And then the final piece is about the accessibility. So we do have plans to do some other improvements. One is to restore, there was a platform that was at the water's edge, and it was used by someone who fishes who's in a wheelchair. And we will, once we get this bridge built, we will bring that back and put it at the water's edge. Again, it's something that just is helps continue our mission of increasing accessibility, but it's really satisfying to be able to make improvements like this that can change how someone approaches the park. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have questions? Ms. Cristelli.
Of all the nice things you said about Spice Brook Park, you forgot to say that there are spice bush shrubs.
Correct. Right. And so the
Lots
correct
of them.
spelling of Spice Bush Swamp Park is Spice Bush is one word. So
Right.
in different, I do want to make sure that the record shows that it is spice bush. It's a plant that grows in swampy areas.
and
But we
then
also have witch hazel and which is my personal favorite. We've got amelanchier, which I've gotten Tom to plant in his yard, as well as pussy willow and a bunch of other plants.
Mr. Kaplan.
Two questions. First, are there any spice bush swallowtails? Because that's actually in part of the area that's part of the butterfly survey that my father does every year for Bolingbrook Nature Center. It's just barely in the radius.
Well, we'll have to
So
get on that. We have
anyway.
another, actually, we have another pollinator garden going in there as well. So there is one already that the garden club put in, but we're going to do an additional one.
Fantastic. This is a great project, but I am curious. same question as I had last time about how we're accessing the far side, because I don't know if there's any easy
So there,
ways to get over there.
thank you. Yeah, it's a great question. We have two options. When we dredged the pond, we put a temporary bridge over the narrow spillway, not the spillway, but the narrow stream. So that's one option. Another is to come, which they sometimes do, is to drive around the pond from the opposite side. But again, we'd have to put down probably a temporary bridge, which is really just timber frames that you put over. So it's not something that lasts.
When they put down a temporary bridge like that, particularly because I know the goal is to do this during a dry period of time, but that area is pretty wet and soft. Are there ENS controls that get put in, or is there some kind of like matting to mitigate some of the depressions that, I mean, I don't know what kind of tracks and machine. I know we're not really there yet with who the contractor is and what they're using, but I'm just wondering if there's any way we can sort of foresee any of that and manage some of that.
Yeah, those are all great comments, and this one's a little different. Luckily, it is a fairly short access off of the parking lot, so the contractor is going to stage in the parking lot. And what we anticipate on this one is, I could see the contractor, if you've ever seen, and if you do a lot of, I'm sure George knows about it, when you do work and you cross wetlands, they have these timber mats, and you just lay them down. You don't have to do any excavation because we don't want to make worse disturbance. And you can get them in fairly long lengths. They've ever see the utility companies when they're doing, I know in Bloomfield when they were doing the power lines, they lay these down so and they spread the load out so they have no impact on the ground whatsoever. So we'd expect the contractor really only has to go over, build the footing, and then he has to never go back over there. So we would anticipate that would be one strategy here that could be worked. And that stream in this location is probably only 8 feet wide. I mean, so they would put a timber down mat to get on the other side. They can probably remove the bridge and the existing footing by reaching over, put the mat down, go over, put the thing, and they'll probably have to pump the concrete over, or because the concrete truck can't get over there. But that's fine. They have the pumpers. They can do that. But
Yeah.
I think a timber mat, and George, I'm sure you've seen a lot in your wetland work. It has a very small footprint because it spreads out the load. Once they get that off, there should be no disturbance. But we are proposing erosion controls along the stream. Once again, straw wattles, silt fence, just to keep it out of the stream, even if we get a rainstorm as we're doing that. But once again, we will be asking the contractor, you need to pick a window. It's not a window one day. It's a window that the weather looks good for 7 days. Give yourself a little buffer on both sides and get this in and get out of there. So we will be clear, and I'm sure we'll actually put your conditions of approval, or any conditions the town has right into the bid package.
I was mostly concerned. Like going to that or timber mat.
I think
One timber mat can span.
yes. We can do that. I think the pond dredging was a much more, right, they had to get big equipment over there. I think you guys had really kind of specialized equipment. So that required a much more, oh, did you? Yeah, so do I. But that needed a much more elaborate crossing. This one, I don't believe that's required. So we should have a much smaller footprint, so I don't think an additional, I'm sure you guys have to peel that all out and kind of restore that area. We won't have to do that here.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. Mr. Lyons.
First, on a personal note, we live in a wonderful town, and it amazes me that, every so often my wife and I, when we're walking or something, we'll discover something new. And this little park sounds beautiful. I didn't even know it existed, and can't wait for the weather to break and get a chance to hike it and check it out a little bit. I'm curious. This is not part of Westmore Park, right? It's a separate entity.
Correct. It's a public park.
So it's owned by the town?
It's owned by the town.
Okay.
And it's funded by the town.
Okay.
And it was the town's first nature preserve, because we owned it before Westmore Park.
Okay, terrific. And then last question, and it's really the same question I asked on the other bridge. It doesn't sound like it's nearly as highly used as the one over Westmore Park, but any safety issues, any urgent safety issues at this time with the bridge?
No, and that was one of the first things we did. We did inspections on the bridge. We would have notified the town. There, once again, just kind of the wood is starting to show an age, and I give Helen credit. We're not waiting to the point where it's ready to go in the hole. So, and one thing I forgot to tell you is we did receive engineering comments. We provide written responses to those comments. We received planning comments. We've addressed those. And then late breaking, you should have an email or a letter from Dwayne Martin saying that we've complied with, because both of these projects do fall within the floodplain.
And compliments to Ms. Rubino Turco for being proactive on this and getting out ahead of any possible. So thank you very, very much, all of you. Thank you.
Do we have any further questions? Does the applicant have anything further before we go to public comment? I'm sorry, Mr. Bankhorst.
I would just like to add, to Mr. Kaplan's point, you didn't mention the equipment access at either site or the appropriate erosion and sedimentation controls for that access or the crossing, however it's being done in your application. And I believe we can handle that through appropriate conditions of approval, but just it does miss the mark with respect to being comprehensive for future note.
The only other thing I would say is in the responses to town comments, those elements are incorporated into there of how the access was going to get into the property. Definitely on Westmore and that. And I would have to say is it's a little bit of a specialty work. I mean, we've done the best we can, but this kind of stream bridge work is a specialty work. And working with town staff, we agreed that we would put in the bid specs that the contractor would have to give the very specific. I can give my best guesstimate on this, but I'm not the contractor, and it is, like I said, specialty work.
Okay, understood. I just want to make sure it's covered in our approval, basically.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bankhorst. Any further questions? All right, anything further before we move on to public comment? All right, thank you very much. All right, moving on to public comment. Those wishing to speak in favor of the application. Seeing none, those wishing to speak in opposition to the application. Seeing none, those wishing to speak but neither in favor nor in opposition. Just note for the record, there are no members of the public up to speak on this application. Does the applicant have anything further before we close this hearing? Applicant is indicating no, she does not. Therefore, this hearing is closed. So we're an hour in. We're going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll pick up with items 10 and 11. Thank you. Give the one-man band a chance to get back to his seat. So next up, Mr. Butler, is item number 10.
Item number 10 is for 37 Ranger Lane, and this will be the first item that we need to read a legal notice for the evening. So I will read that right now. West Hartford Plan and Zoning Commission legal notice. The Town of West Hartford Plan and Zoning Commission, also acting as the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency, will hold its regular meeting at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024. Public hearings will convene at 7:15 or soon thereafter, as the matter may be heard in Town Hall 50 South Main Street, West Hartford, Connecticut, Legislative Chamber, Room 314 on the following. 37 Ranger Lane, application IWW 1209 of J. Kemper, requesting approval of an inland wetland and watercourses permit to conduct certain regulated activities which may have an adverse impact on a wetland regulated area. The applicant proposes to construct a plus or minus 1,488 square foot addition, which includes a deck. The applicant also proposes the installation of retaining walls, stormwater management structures, and associated site grading. Work is proposed within the 150-foot upland review area with no direct wetland impacts proposed. This was submitted for IWWA receipt on December 4th, determined potentially significant, and set for public hearing on January 3rd, 2024. At this hearing, interested persons may be heard or submit written communication received. The applications are available for public view in the Town Plan and Zoning Office, Room 214, Town Hall 50 South Main Street, West Hartford, Connecticut 06107, or by visiting the town's website at www.westhartford.ct.gov and following the navigation path to the Planning and Zoning website. Kevin Ahern, TPZ IWWA Chairman, and Todd Dumay, Town Planner, IWWA Administrative Officer. This was published on 12/21/2023 and 12/28/2023.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Is the applicant ready to proceed? Please.
Hello, Jason Bendett, JASONBENDETT, 37 Ranger Lane in West Hartford. Thank you for hearing our proposal. Me and my wife, who's sitting over there, are lifelong residents of West Hartford. And after we decided to have a second child, we purchased our current home with plans to update it. The house was built in the late 1960s, and it's still all original down to our one working burner and our turquoise oven. As our children, Cece and Bella, two young girls, have grown up, we decided we also need to add additional space to the house. We love our neighborhood. We want to stay here. We walk to Bugby, which is right around the corner. My brother, our parents are nearby for built-in babysitting, and we have many close friends in walking distance. We worked with Jack Kemper for over 2 years to come up with a plan that meets our family's need and keeps as much of the original feel of the house as possible. And we are proposing to add on to the back of the house a great room, a kitchen on the main floor, and an office loft area on the second floor. With Jack's help, we also engaged Andrew Quirk from Kratzer & Jones and George Logan from REMA for a stormwater management report and wetlands delineation characterization report. Based on the work performed, I'll just note two important things. Our existing house is approximately 120 feet from the wetlands, as delineated by George Logan in his report. And although the proposed addition will reduce this 120 feet down to 104 feet, there will be no change to the wooded, vegetated buffer to the wetlands. And then additionally, the runoff subsequent to the day here, and we think this house will add a lot of happiness to our family and not disrupt our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jack Kemper, Kemper Associates Architects. I think I have the smallest part in this, but I just wanted to mention that when we first started working with Jason Ronit several years ago now, we first were looking to build the addition to the east side of the backyard and farther from where the wetlands were. Where we perceive them as then they're farther away, as it turns out. But that was the flattest area of the yard, and they really wanted to save that area for kids to play. And I think in our photos, I deliberately put in the playscape just to make that point. A couple of things we've gone back and forth with the comments. I think most of the comments I think we've addressed. I think the biggest one is we changed the screen porch. We changed the screen porch under the deck to open and let us do helical piers instead of a foundation. So that's been removed. And that was one of the comments. And that got rid of several retaining walls too. So I think I think the gist of it is we're gentler in the back. Brian, I know Andrew had some responses too. So, and I assume you have the plans. I didn't bring plans because I assume you guys have them, so. Good.
All right.
And if you have questions for Andrew or George, they're here.
Thank you.
Good evening, Andrew Quirk, professional engineer and principal with Kratzer Jones and Associates. I'll just add a few things and then be available for questions. As was mentioned, we were retained for the surveying and engineering, civil engineering services associated with the addition. The plans that you have before you have been revised to address town comments. Just a couple of notes in particular. We did discuss access for the construction area off the rear of the driveway. We don't expect to be stockpiling much material, but we've identified that on the plans where that area would be. At the last meeting, it was suggested that a soil scientist be retained to delineate the wetlands as opposed to using the town wetland mapping. And that's been done by George Logan of REMA Ecological Services. And we did field locate those, and it's significantly further away than the town mapping. The previous mapping, which is now shown in light gray, but shows up on the neighbor's house to the west, is called out as the town wetland mapping, which cut through the southwest corner of the property. Approximately 30 feet onto the property, according to the town wetland mapping. But the field delineation shows that the limit of the inland wetlands is approximately 40 feet off the property. So there are no wetlands on this property. And then rather than being with the addition, I don't have the previous map, but I think it was around 35 feet from the addition to the wetland line. By the field delineated wetlands, it's 104 feet. So there's a significant difference in this particular case between the GIS mapping, that's not always so, but between the GIS mapping and the field delineation. The retaining walls, I just want to add that that's to maintain that flat area up near the rear, off the back of the driveway, to maintain that as a flat area. There's also a tree. The plans have gotten a little bit busy, but maybe you can see on the blow up. There's an existing 20-inch tree that's in the circular portion of the retaining wall. And the idea there is that it's a very small retaining wall, but to maintain the existing grades at that tree so that that tree can remain. So that really the purpose there is to try to keep that flat area and transition to the walkout level down below with having minimal disturbance. That's the purpose of that retaining wall system. For stormwater management, we really did a rigorous design based on town comments and concerns near the wetlands for a very small addition of impervious area to the site. We modeled it with the most conservative model, the TR55 model, and one of the comments was to even model each separate sub-watershed area to each of the two downspouts. So it's a very conservative model and design whereby the relatively clean stormwater from the roof water system is brought to the stormwater chambers that are shown with the detail in the top left to promote groundwater recharge. And that's, again, of course, to replicate the system that would happen naturally where the rainfall would be infiltrated into the soil in its adjacent location. So this system takes it from the roof and promotes that infiltration system. There were two outstanding comments as of earlier today from engineering. One was addressed by Jack Kemper regarding the retaining walls. The other was that we're showing that with this underground system that it's allowed to fill up completely, really get as much groundwater recharge as we can, which is beneficial. And then, if need be, there's an emergency overflow at the top of the system, and we've modeled it that way. We believe the soils in the area would support those draining down between storm events. The outstanding comment from engineering was that soil testing be performed or the outlet be changed based on the actual soil conditions. And I'm sure we can coordinate that with the contractor and the town to do so. If you were going to move to an approval to have that as a condition approval, we're amenable to doing that. We'd work with the contractor and provide that information to engineering and alter the design as necessary. Other than that, we have a lot of the standard erosion controls. We've addressed all the other comments that were raised. It was noted earlier today that they were sufficiently addressed aside from those two, which I've just mentioned. That covers all the site engineering that was performed by us. At this time, I'll just see if George Logan has anything further to add for his delineation, and then I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Can I just, before George talks, Brian, is there an updated, I feel like, yeah, where? Because all I'm seeing is the 1221 comments.
That's correct. There were, that was the one item that didn't make it into my stack today, and I apologize for that. It was
Okay.
a memo from Julie Vieira in which she indicates that all of her comments were addressed, but two of them, and those were the two that.
Did they just address?
Yes.
That's fine with me then.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, George.
Again, George Logan for the record, Remain Ecological Services. I'm just here more to answer any questions you may have. I did delineate the wetlands, and as you probably know, there's a significant wetland resource that is part not on this property but further out, probably about 50 or so acres worth of wetlands back there, and major stream. So a lot of good function and values, but again, there's no impact, direct or indirect, to the wetlands, so I think we're in good shape here. Thanks.
Thank you. Just a procedural question for Mr. Podlick. So a delineation was done, however, a map amendment was not. Insofar as our consideration of the wetland impacts, can we rely on the delineation since it came from a registered soil scientist, or?
So the map is the map, right, with the
Yeah,
town of West
that's-
Hartford, so that's not changing.
Yeah.
But yes, I think his statements and conclusions as it relates to potential wetland impacts.
And his
actual
licensure
wetland
as a
impacts.
registered, well, yeah, so,
Right.
okay.
I believe those are perfectly legitimate and should be considered by the board.
All right, thank you. This is my memory of it, but I couldn't recall whether yeah, it would seem unfair that we couldn't. Okay, thank you. Do we have questions for the applicant? Ms. Gillette?
I'm sorry, I must be brain dead. Do we have a map that shows where the wetlands lines are?
Yes.
So
if I may,
I've got a lot of
if I may,
architectural drawings.
through here, Mr. Chairman and Ms. Gillette. So the second page.
Yeah, this one.
Yep. So that one, very faintly, you can see on there, it says the wetland from West Hartford GIS. And so I've actually gone in here on the survey sheet, which is the first sheet, and I've darkened that line just with a pen just now so that you could see it.
It's on the,
Yeah, if you get on the
This?
top, yeah, on the top sheet, you could see it also, but it also shows on the second sheet.
okay, so that's
it's-
this, okay, all right.
It's approximately right here.
Yikes.
Yep, and so the field delineated boundary is substantially further off the property, and you
Is
could see that
71
by,
beyond that?
yeah, and so you could see that by the identified wetland flags that he's noted on the plan.
Okay. That's the WF
Correct, that's the field.
one? That's where they delineated
Correct,
the
that's the field
wetlands.
delineated wetland boundary, yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Mr. Bakehorst?
I had one question regarding your sediment barrier. The only thing indicated on the plan is a silt fence, but the plan refers to sedimentation barrier to be installed as shown on this plan. So I'm a little confused as to where your sediment barrier is going.
The type of sediment barrier we're proposing is silt fence. I'm not sure if you're referring to a note that says something
It's
contrary.
in the details to the extreme left. sedimentation barrier installation, hay bale installation.
Oh, we were not proposing, that's a good pickup, we are not proposing hay bales in addition to the silt fence, but rather just the silt fence. So the detail is shown there, but it's not proposed on the plan view.
In the erosion and sedimentation control notes, number 9, sedimentation barrier to be installed as shown.
In this case, we did not employ the hay bales in addition to the silt fence, but just the silt fence. So the detail and the note are there, but it's not indicated to be used on the plan.
Okay. Also, note number 14 indicates temporary pervious barriers using hay bales or silt fence. I
Or
guess
silt
that could
fence.
be either.
Right.
Okay. That was my my question.
Excellent point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Binkhorst. Any other questions? All right. Does the applicant have anything further before we move on to public comment? Oh, yes, sir, Mr. Kaplan, sorry.
Do the chamber systems need any maintenance through time? I saw that there's one tree being removed from the, as part of the construction, but there's a number of other trees in the area. I don't know if debris is going to accumulate from trees or anything else on the roof, and if there's going to have to be some kind of maintenance for that chamber system. But can you speak to that?
Sure. Well, typically, a lot of these gutters, I don't know on this architectural plan if they're using helmets or gutter guards, but typically that's done to keep the leaf debris out of the gutter system prior to the roof leaders and the connection to that. And then as far as any maintenance on them, these are, in both cases, very shallow. So there's a access port where they could be flushed. But maintenance should be pretty minimal in this case.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? All right. We'll go to public comment at this point then. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the application? Seeing none, those wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Seeing none, those wishing to speak but neither in favor nor in opposition to the application? Just to indicate there are no members of the public that wish to speak on this particular application. Does the applicant have anything further before we close this public hearing? The applicant's team is indicating they do not, and this public hearing is closed. Thank you. And next up then, item number 10.
West
Excuse me,
Hartford.
11.
Sorry.
11.
West Hartford Plan and Zoning Commission legal notice. The town of West Hartford Plan and Zoning Commission, also acting as the Inland Wetland and Watercourses Agency, will hold its regular meeting at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024. Public hearings will convene at 7:15 p.m. or soon thereafter, as the matter may be heard in Town Hall, 50 South Main Street, West Hartford, Connecticut, Legislative Chamber, Room 314 on the following. 176 Newington Road, application SUP 1431 of Green Drop, requesting approval of a temporary special use permit to construct a plus or minus 358 square foot mobile Green Drop donation trailer within the existing undeveloped pad site within the existing shopping plaza for a period of 1 year. And this is submitted for TPZ receipt on December 4th, and the required public hearing was set for tonight, January 3rd, 2024. At this hearing, interested persons may be heard or submitted written comment received. The applications are available for public review in the Town Plan and Zoning Office, Room 214, Town Hall, 50 South Main Street, West Hartford, Connecticut, 06107, or by visiting the town's website at www.westhartfordct.gov and following the navigation path to the Planning and Zoning section. Kevin Ahern, TPZ, IWWA Chairman, Todd Dumay, Town Planner, IWWA Administrative Officer, and this was published on 12/21/2023 and 12/28/2023.
Thank you, Mr. Pudlick. Is the applicant ready to proceed? Please.
Good evening. My name is Matt Manchese. I'm a registered professional engineer with Kimley Horn, and with me is Ron D., the Director of Real Estate with Green Drop Charitable Donations. As Brian said, we have a couple slides to help convey what the what our project here is all about. And I'll turn it over to Ron.
This rarely works.
Yeah.
Right out of
We'll
the gate.
find out. If it
So
doesn't work,
just-
we have handheld exhibits as well.
We are quite a company, we're used to this, so.
All right,
just-
we'll see what happens.
Just give it a second.
We'll
As
give it a
is
moment,
Brian.
no
There's
worries.
there's a
Well, I'll
key-
get started and explain to you Green Drop is and why we're here. My name is Ron D. My office is located at 30 Pleasant Court in Brewster, Massachusetts, 02631. I'm the Director of Real Estate for Green Drop nationally across the United States. Green Drop was founded in Bensalem, Pennsylvania in 2012. Green Drop was founded primarily to raise charitable donations funding for the American Red Cross and the Loyal Order of the Purple Heart. The way we do that is we locate charitable goods donation facilities in neighborhood shopping centers throughout the United States. Most of our locations are mobile donation offices, which are 43 foot long by 8.5 foot wide, $130,000 mobile office trailers. These are self-contained with their own restroom, their own office, and 335 square feet of storage. We'll have a picture here in a moment. We'll show you what that looks like. Our donation offices collect on average 19,500 pounds of donated goods per week. We have 66 of these locations located between New York and Honolulu, Hawaii, all across the country and 9 different states currently. Some of them are brick and mortar locations. Most of them are these mobile donation offices, as you will see. The mobile donation offices are typically located in busy, daily needs generating shopping centers like Stop and Shop anchored shopping centers. Grocery stores seem to generate a high volume of charitable good donations from area residents. What we've seen from our research and our activity across the United States is that when people are on their way to the grocery store or a daily needs generating shopping center with a hair salon or other daily needs generating tenants, they seem to be in the mindset of, hey, I'm going to grab that bag of clothing or that box of books or shoes from the house that's been sitting in the garage for a few months, and I'm going to drop it off at Green Drop when I go to the grocery store. Green Drop is very, very different than what you're typically used to, which are unattended donation bins. Green Drop is open 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. We're open 363 days a year. We're closed on Christmas. We're closed on Thanksgiving. These Green Drop locations are staffed by 2 full-time uniformed employees all day long, every day, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Why is that important? When we started Green Drop in 2012, we realized that donation bins, unattended donation bins, were often becoming a danger and a nuisance to communities. People climb in them, they get stuck in them, kids play in them, homeless people are attracted to them, people start fires in them, they become a real nuisance. In fact, when I came here to Hartford to start looking for sites, I went to Elmwood Plaza, and as you probably know, there are 4 existing donation bins there in the parking lot very close to our proposed location that are often overflowing with donations. The few times I've been there, there are donations scattered in the parking lot. There are donations, piled up next to the 4 unattended donation bins. There's debris blowing across the parking lot. And when I approached the landlord about Green Drop, they said, "Oh my gosh, Ron, this is a solution to this unattended donation bin problem." So 2 full-time employees there. Very often what will happen is the area residents that are frequenting that shopping center, frequenting that Stop and Shop grocery store, will actually get to know the attendants that work there. We hire a lot of retired police officers. We hire a lot of retired firemen, retired people from the community that know the community very well. They get to know the area residents. They'll come by, they'll say, "Hey, good morning, Ron, it's good to see you again. I have a bag of clothing in the trunk." Most of our donors do not even get out of the car. What they'll do is they'll pull up parallel to the Green Drop donation mobile office. They will talk to the attendant. They'll pop open the trunk or pop open the hatchback on the SUV. We take the bag or the box out of the automobile from them, put them inside the Green Drop donation trailer. Very, very important to note that nothing is stored outside the Green Drop donation trailer at any time ever. This is very important to us. I'll give you an example why. I don't ever want a landlord calling me at 10 o'clock at night or 4 o'clock in the morning and say, "Hey, Ron, somebody's dropped off a mattress in the parking lot." It doesn't happen, and I'll tell you why it doesn't happen. We have 6 internet-connected security cameras on the Green Drop mobile office trailer. They're monitored 24/7 by an outside company. That company calls our call center if anything ever gets dropped off when we're not open, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. They will call us and say, hey, Mr. D, something got dropped off in the parking lot. You need to pick it up right away. We are actually owned, as of 2 years ago, by Savers, the thrift store company. We have a couple of Savers here in the Hartford market. Savers bought Green Drop, and what happens is the call center will call Savers. We will send a box truck over to pick up the donations that were dropped off when we're not open. And again, it doesn't happen very frequently. One of the main reasons it doesn't happen is our attendants, our uniformed employees, have iPads. When you come to make a donation at Green Drop, we will ask you if you'd like to give us your email address. If you give us your email address, we'll email you a receipt for your donation. That receipt will have the American Red Cross logo on it or the Loyal Order of the Purple Heart, and then you can take that home and use it for your own tax-deductible purposes. So what does Savers do? Savers purchases the items that are donated from the local community from the American Red Cross or the not-for-profit partner like the Loyal Order of the Purple Heart. We weigh the product. Again, as I mentioned, the donations, 19,500 pounds per week on average. We pay the not-for-profit partners for those donations. We buy the donations from them, if you will. Last year, we purchased over $5 million worth of donated items from communities from the American Red Cross. Every time we open up another Green Drop, the amount of money they get from the donations goes up. We actually pay the American Red Cross every month. Every month they get a check. We weigh the donations. We calculate how much we owe the Red Cross. They get a check, and as I mentioned, last year that was over $5 million. The American Red Cross, Loyal Order of Purple Heart, other not-for-profit partners, they would like us to continue to open as many Green Drops as possible because they're essentially contracting us to collect donations from area and neighborhood residents on their behalf. We buy those donations from them. They get the cash. We get the product. We take the product to Savers, and Savers sells the inventory at the Savers thrift stores. So it's a green initiative. It's taking things from resident area homes that would normally get thrown in the trash. It's recycling them, and it's selling them on the market through the Savers thrift stores. Savers is a 70-year-old company. We have 320 thrift stores in the United States, Canada, and Australia. This past June, we actually went public on the New York Stock Exchange. It's a very, very well-funded company. In the 12 years we've been in business with Green Drop, it's important to note, we have never been asked to leave a location by a landlord or a municipality. That's despite the fact that we often negotiate conditions in our municipal approvals and our leases that give the landlords and municipalities a 30-day kickout. We often agree to give municipalities and landlords 30 days notice. If you don't like what's going on at Green Drop, you can notice us to leave, and we'll pick up and leave within 30 days. The mobile office trailer has electricity in it to operate the restroom in the office. Initially, when we open, we have a gasoline-powered generator that's self-contained and built with the mobile office trailer. This is a $130,000 mobile office trailer, brand new. We'll run the electric and the batteries and such on the trailer off the gasoline-powered generator. While we look for a point of connection for electric, if we're able to find one, we would come back to the municipality, to West Hartford, say we found a point of connection for electric. Can we obtain the necessary electrical permit to connect the mobile office trailer to electric? And then we don't have to run the gasoline-powered generator anymore. It's just there for emergency purposes. That's the business model. We're perceived as a community asset. Area residents come to love us and know us because we're there for them to be able to donate these items to the American Red Cross and the Loyal Order of the Purple Heart. They know that we're reusing these items. We're keeping these items out of the landfill. 60% of what gets donated nationally are clothing items. 40% are anything else in your house less than 50 pounds that doesn't contain a liquid. We take electronics, we take kitchen appliances, we take small pieces of furniture, we take decor, we take jewelry, we take anything in your house that does not contain a liquid in it. So again, 60% is apparel and clothing, 40% are what we call hard goods or anything else within your home. And if you go into a Savers stores here in the Hartford area, you'll see all of those items on the shelves within the Savers stores that are for sale. We're passing around a picture on the laptop now of what the Green Drop will look like. This Green Drop will be located on the undeveloped out parcel within Elmwood Plaza. One of the questions you may have is right now there's approximately a 5-foot tall asphalt curb that is surrounding that out parcel. we would need to remove that for the length of that mobile office trailer, which is 43 feet long. We'd have to remove a section of that asphalt curb just to make the access in and out of the mobile office trailer convenient, and not have our employees trip on that curb going in and out of the office trailer. So we're going to remove that curb if you give us an approval. We're going to put down some gravel, because right now it's just an undeveloped dirt parcel with grass on it. We'll put some gravel down underneath where the mobile office trailer is proposed to go, remove the curb, and then we would open for business and be available for donations as soon as possible. We have one other site approved here in the Hartford area so far. I just picked up a permit this evening at 4:30 to locate exactly what you're looking at here in the Jordan Lane Shopping Center over in Weathersfield. And they approved that at their Planning and Zoning Commission last month, and I picked up the permit this afternoon on the way to this meeting. So there would be 2 in here, and I'm continuing to look for more. We would hope to eventually have 6 or 8 of these located here in the greater Hartford area. That's my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Questions?
I should mention the unattended donation bins will be removed if they haven't been removed already.
Mr. Latt.
There aren't many houses in this area, but there are some.
Yeah.
How loud is this gas generator?
It's not loud at all. In fact, it's self-contained in the gooseneck here. When you buy a mobile office trailer like this, on the opposite side of this gooseneck is a door. You flip open the door and the gasoline power generator sits inside there. It's insulated. It's very quiet. Nobody would hear this if they walked 50 feet away from this mobile office trailer. You wouldn't hear it running. And as I said, if we're able to obtain approval from you and get open, my next step would be to go look for a point of connection for electric and hook this up to electric as soon as possible. I'm actually meeting on Tuesday morning next week. I'm meeting a local electrician out at Weathersfield to look at the site at Jordan Lane to see if we can connect that to electric as soon as possible. But it's self-contained and it's insulated, and you won't hear it if you're not, right upon the location.
And it,
Swing back to the microphone just in case.
Yep. Got it. Sorry.
I'm it's a self-contained bathroom. I'm assuming this is a porta potty. How is that serviced?
Sure. So nationwide, even here in Hartford, there are companies that do nothing but service remote restrooms. So every porta potty you see on a construction site, every mobile office you see on a construction site, there are companies that just go around every day and they clean and dispose of the waste from these restrooms. If you went into this mobile office, you would be surprised how nice it is. It looks like a legitimate restroom that you would find in your house. There's an office in there. It's very clean. The same company that makes these office trailers make recreational vehicles that people use to go camping and on vacation in. It's a very, very nice professional looking restroom. And again, we would contract with a local service company to provide the cleaning and the sanitation and waste removal for this. They usually come once or twice a week, depending on when it's needed.
And I guess it kind of the obvious question to me is, if this is such a good idea, why is it on wheels? We don't really do vehicles. We don't do stuff on wheels here in West Hartford very often. Is this going to be a mobile trailer that, if it is successful, will sit there for a decade? Why? I don't get it.
As I mentioned before, I will tell you that every municipality, every landlord we work with, we let them know that if for any reason you have an issue with what we're doing here, you can ask us to leave in 30 days and we'll leave, and that's the primary reason. We are not one of the things you'll find with these unstaffed donation bins that pop up in shopping centers around the area. Is they're very, very difficult or almost impossible to get removed if they're not maintained well. If for any reason you don't think this is being maintained well, we'll remove it immediately. That's one of the reasons. It's really a selling point for us. And I will tell you that a lot of shopping center leases, most of you will probably know this having done what you do, many shopping center leases that were written for the last 20 or 30 years have a clause in there of prohibited uses. One of the historic prohibited uses over the years were thrift shops and donation centers. The landlords didn't want them. It's in the same paragraph in the lease as massage parlors. And when the businesses evolved and places like Massage Envy started opening and Green Drop started opening, these became lease obstructions for us. And we worked around that in order to bring this service to communities by having these $130,000 mobile office trailers built for us.
Huh.
I can tell you, we've been in business since 2012. To answer your question very candidly, we have had locations like this in place for more than 10 years. And they're well maintained, they're cleaned, they're an asset to the community. I should also mention that when we work with the American Red Cross and the Loyal Order of the Purple Heart, the money that is generated by us purchasing the charitable donations will stay here in the Hartford area. They commit to having the money spent here in the Hartford area. It will not be shipped to other areas of the country. One of the things I've learned since working to Green Drop, I don't know if you know this, most of the time we see the American Red Cross doing disaster relief on TV. Most of their transactions are actually home fires. When somebody has a home fire in the neighborhood, the American Red Cross shows up and says, do you need clothing? Do you need money? Do you need food? Do you need housing? What do you need? That's what they do on a daily basis, and that's why we support them.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? Mr. Kaplan?
So, in the narrative of the application, I'm sorry, as part of the application materials, it said this is for a period of 1 year?
That's correct.
For the pad site? So, what happens at the end of the year? Then does the trailer go away or is it staying? You said,
If you were happy with us, if the landlord was happy with us, we would come back and ask for a renewal of the permit.
so the intention then you have a year, this is like a year trial period and you plan to have this be here?
I believe the 1 year was actually defined by West Hartford. Is that accurate or?
But I'm curious what you said you've had some that have been there since 2012.
If we could get a permit
is your
for,
intention that this would be there forever?
if you would give us a permit for 3 years or 5 years, we would accept that.
Mr. Pudlick?
The reason why, Mr. Chairman, the reason why we went through the determination for a temporary special use permit is essentially because it's a mobile office trailer, right? This is not a brick and mortar building. And so the only mechanism that we had to present to them as a potential option for approval is through the avenue of a temporary special use permit. So we suggested that a year might be an appropriate first place to start, and then should this go relatively well over the next year and there's interest in extending it beyond that, then perhaps we can have them come back for a longer duration.
All right. Thank you for that. I was more curious about the applicant's intentions, but yeah, appreciate it.
Our intentions would be to stay here as long as you are happy and satisfied with us and we're being a community asset.
But it would be the trailer that whole time?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. And yes, Mr. Bakehorst.
You indicated you were meeting with an electrician regarding electrical access. Is there any reason you see why this wouldn't be hooked up to electric? Is that your goal in this particular situation?
The goal would be to hook it up to electric if we can find a point of connection. As I open these around the country, very often I have to go find a point of connection within the shopping center because the landlord has stipulated that this is where we will allow this to be placed within the shopping center. We have the means to go ahead and open with the gasoline powered generator. We would go ahead and open it and utilize that to provide heat and air conditioning and electric to the 2 employees that are working there all day long. If there's an opportunity to go find electric, we will look for it and see if we can do that.
What type of electric? Like running an extension cord across the parking lot, or actually?
No, this would be a permanent, conduited electric to the trailer with a 120, 208, 50 amp service.
Okay. Okay, but that would be your preference. Is that most of your installations, or they wound up?
It's probably 50-50. It's significantly less expensive to operate the electric for this trailer than it is to burn gasoline.
I would think so.
Yes.
I would encourage you to find an electrical outlet.
We will do the best we can, yeah.
Thank you.
Depending on the location, just to give you an idea, once we open, depending on the location of the point of connection for electric, sometimes it costs us $5,000, sometimes it costs $20,000 to make that connection.
Understood. Thank you.
Ms. Gillette.
Just quickly, in your application, you say that the mobile office is 42 feet long and 102 inches wide, and will sit on 5 parking spaces. But that's not your intention. You're on the green space adjacent to the parking.
That is correct.
Right.
In this
okay.
location, that's correct. Yeah, that narrative is prototypical.
Okay. Gotcha.
Well, that gets to my one question, which is why not, with all this impervious surface, why create more?
Yeah.
Why can't this sit where the old donation boxes were? Is that a landlord preference?
It's a number one, it's a landlord preference. Number two, the location of the existing donation bins is not as visible and as accessible as this location.
Okay. I mean, it's not like that, green spaces, has any special particular characteristics or anything like that. It is nice. In general, when I look at all this parking lot, and I think this is a vehicle.
Yeah.
This is a vehicle, and this vehicle belongs in a.
I think this particular landlord would prefer to leave the parking spaces for parking, and they have this green space that's available. One of the things that could happen, and we give the landlord a 30-day termination notice as well. If the landlord would lease this out parcel and somebody would come to you to build a restaurant or a store, we would have to come to you and ask for relocation.
Ms. Grisilli.
I have choices when I have a bundle of clothing in my trunk. On my way to that supermarket, I pass Goodwill, or I could have called the Salvation Army to come, and there's another company that
Sure.
would come. So I'm presuming that you will do some marketing to, in fact, induce me to give to you. Signage?
No additional signage other than what you see here on the mobile office trailer. When we open, we would have we would send out about 15,000 postcards to area residents to introduce them to Green Drop. You do have choices. You can donate to Goodwill. Goodwill partners with a large number of charities. We partner with the American Red Cross. That's our preferred charity, not-for-profit charity partner. And people can either choose to donate so that the money goes to the Red Cross, or they can choose to go to Goodwill. When I went to Weathersfield Town Hall this evening, I passed a Popeyes and a Chick-fil-A within a quarter of a mile. So everybody has choices.
Right. You're located so far away from the supermarket, which is the major draw for that. I know that parking area, and you're way out of the way, so.
Crazy Bruce.
Good luck.
I was going to say, some might argue there's a different draw on that location.
It looks very nice.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I can tell you about some of the larger landlords around the country. You probably have some here in the area. Kimco, Regency Shopping Centers, Simon, Westfield.
I know them.
We do business with all these shopping center owners. What's very funny is when we typically do our first or second deal with these very large REITs, if you will, they often put us in a location like this. As soon as we open, or when the end of the first year comes along, they usually say, "Hey, Ron, could you move this into the front row of the shopping center up on the street?" Because they see the perceived community asset value that we're bringing to the neighborhood. So initially, they're a little timid. This is our first deal with this particular landlord. They've given us this location. Again, we've never closed a location since we've been open in 2012. We have 66 of these open. I would expect that a year from now, I may come back to you and say, hey, the landlord would like us to move closer to the front of the shopping center.
I believe you when you say they want it more visible, because I'm sure I'm not the only woman who drives around for 2 months with things in the trunk of my car.
Understood.
I have never done that this month.
Right. To
Understood.
give them
Yeah.
and have them used. Yeah.
Yeah, this is, even though we're away from the shopping store, people will see us, they'll be aware of us, and it becomes convenience. We survey all of our donors, and one of the things we find out from our donors is that convenience and security is the number one factor. They want to be convenient and visible and feel secure. A lot of our landlords typically left. I'll let you know, we're actually paying the landlord, rent here. We'll pay them a certain amount of rent per month. Once we get open and they realize we have these 2 full-time uniformed employees in the parking lot 7 days a week, they often call me and they go, "Hey, Ron, this doesn't feel right. You're putting security guards in my parking lot and you're paying me rent. What's wrong with this relationship?" I'm like, "That's the way it works. It's fine with us."
They've got a pretty good line of sight from the gas station too. So if you're gassing,
Yeah, once you pull
so
in.
if you're gassing up, you're going to be able to see the front of that. So I can
We
see
actually-
why you
yeah.
want it
Yeah.
where it is.
We like the gas stations and the shopping center parking lots because people are stopped for a minute, they get out and they go, "Oh, I got that bag in the garage, I'm going to go get it." That happens quite often.
Yeah.
Happens quite often.
Yes, Mr. Lyons.
Thank you. This is really fascinating to me. I think it's certainly a great intent, and it sounds like it's working in other markets, which is, I think if it works there, it should work here. But anything that's going to help, lift people, whether it's providing them clothing or providing them needed goods, is great. A couple of concerns. My midlife crisis is I collect antique cars.
Mm-hmm.
And the worst thing you can do to a car, really, other than wrecking it, is not drive it. Now, I know this is not a motorized vehicle, but it is a pulled vehicle. It is
Yep.
I don't think it's a fifth wheel. It's a typical trailer, traditional trailer. And so I worry because it's going to sit there. We're in a part of the world, part of the Northeast where we get a lot of rain. And if you park a car, I'm sure you've seen a car abandoned on a street or sitting in a driveway where it hasn't been touched for months, just magically dirt starts to climb up the side of the car. It just starts to get dirty. That's a concern. Another concern is the tires will begin to dry rot. You run the risk of a blowout, which creates a danger, even statically located, not moving. The brakes can rust shut. I've witnessed it. Try pulling a car that hasn't moved in 4 or 5 years. The wheels will invariably be locked. Those are some of the concerns that I have just from a safety perspective. And then another thought is, so you've got 2 uniform employees on at all times. Who do they report to? Where do they report into? How do you hire them? And how do you keep it staffed? Do you have extra employees that can go from location to location if somebody's out sick or down? Because I think security, most importantly for those folks that are kind enough to donate and drop off items, they want the security of somebody, whether, as you say, you pull up and they open their lift back or whatever it is.
Sure.
I kind of hit you with a lot here, but.
No, that's all right. We obviously we're investing $130,000 in this mobile office. We're not going to allow those repair and maintenance issues to happen. This will be registered with the Department of Motor Vehicles. It'll have a license plate on it at all times. We will move it and replace it from time to time to wash it. So we'll bring in a new trailer, take that one out, wash it, maintain it, make any necessary repairs and maintenance, and then bring it in. We'll never leave the site vacant. There'll always be a green drop trailer there, but as the trailer needs repair and maintenance, we will take it to get those things accomplished.
So, yeah, I'll stop you at that point. So basically, you've got a rotational schedule where at some predetermined time, a twin trailer will be brought in, on a big rig. You just swap the trailers and take the other one away, and it's probably anybody who's not paying attention would never know it happened.
That's correct.
Okay.
And just so you know, we can move these with a dually pickup truck.
Right.
So it doesn't require a big rig run. What's that?
Is that a fifth wheel or not? I didn't look at it closely.
It is a fifth wheel, yes.
It is a fifth wheel.
Yeah, so
Okay,
it can be
I'm
moved
sorry.
with a dually pickup truck,
Okay,
yes.
okay, terrific.
As far as employees, and I can't show you the interior pictures here today. We don't have them. Because we have heating, ventilation, and air conditioning and a self-contained office and a restroom, the employees we get here are amazing. We get a lot of retired veterans, police officers, firemen. They love being here because they've got a self-contained office, they're autonomous, and they get to talk to the community all day long. So our employees are actually really, really amazing. We hire some really great people. We try to hire people from here in the local community. We try to hire people that are doing other charitable things here in the community, and we're very focused on that. So we're able to hire some great employees. We're we typically don't have the folks here that are, working in other hourly jobs within the community. They're usually retired, more mature people that are interacting with the community.
I just, a subjective comment to close, it's just, is a fascinating business model you have, and it seems to work. So
Thanks.
really, really fascinating. So thank you for presenting.
Thank you. Yeah, this was started, I said, in Philadelphia in 2012, and the Savers Thrift Store Company stumbled upon us 2 years ago, and were fascinated by it and said, "Oh, we need to bring this into the fold with the Savers Company," and they did. So,
Thank you. Questions? I have a quick one, Mr. D. So you're in Brewster, Mass. I grew up in Dennis.
very good.
The applicants on here are in Illinois and Washington. Who is the town's contact if there's issues?
Sure.
Like, who does Brian reach out to? What do we have for local?
As long as I'm alive, you can call me. The corporate office is in Seattle, Washington, and Bellevue, Washington. So we've got a 24/7 corporate office. That's where the Savers Company is headquartered.
Brian, I recommend that you visit him directly in Brewster, Mass.
Absolutely.
Stop by the Snowy Isle, get a coffee.
Yes.
I'll recommend a couple restaurants.
We'll go to the Squire. We'll go to the Squire too.
I was just at Cafe Al Fresco a couple weeks ago. All right, because that was one of the concerns that we were sort of I was batting around, was just that in terms of like if the town. So what's going to probably happen, right? If we were to approve this, there's going to be a look back, right? And there's going to be monitoring of the location.
Sure.
Well, it's not going to be a look back in the traditional sense that we have with a normal SUP, because they're only asking for 1 year. And
Right, but wouldn't it be like with the dog park? Remember that was only a year?
we could do it that way, where we structure a 6 month or something look back, and then
You don't think so? All right, well, whatever. I guess maybe not. Yeah,
I
yeah,
had a-
because the year is a look back.
Yeah, I mean, typically the look back
the
is
same question?
typically the
Yeah.
look back is 2 years on an SUP. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
this is actually a year shorter than that.
So the sort of nature of the beast, it's kind of going to get a look back anyway.
Right,
So,
right.
okay, that's true.
I did have one follow-up question though, based on your question for the applicant, and that is, if there are items that are left outside, who is it that's monitoring, and where do they come from if something is left overnight and
Sure.
needs to be picked
So we
up?
have the 6 internet-connected security cameras on the trailer. 4 of them are on the outside, 2 of them are on the inside of the trailer for theft reasons. We have a security company, 24/7, based in Seattle. They're watching these cameras all day long. That's what they do, like ADT or anybody else. If anything gets dropped off, they call me or somebody else in operations, say, Ron, something's in the parking lot, you need to go get it. We send a box truck from the Savers store out to come get the items, and they take it directly to the Savers store. I should say, operational logistically, what will happen here, the 19,500 pounds of goods that are collected per week, they will be picked up twice a week by a Savers box truck. That'll take it directly to one of the Savers stores where it'll get unloaded and sorted. So one of the frequent questions I get is, hey, Ron, these people are dropping off these bags and boxes. Are you opening them there on site? We're not. The bags and boxes go directly into the green drop trailer. They stay there until we put it on a box truck. The box truck goes to the Savers store and it gets unloaded there. So the stuff isn't getting, opened and picked through and that kind of thing. It's self-contained. The important thing about the 24/7, and it's important in West Hartford, it's important to any community, but I don't want to ever have the CEO of Simon Property Group call me and say, hey, Ron, I'm in Merrillville, Indiana, and there's a mattress in the parking lot. It just doesn't happen, because I know they're going to ask us to leave and we're not going to do any deals in the future, So we're really, really sacred about that. You'll see when our employees come at 9 o'clock in the morning, they're going to come out side of the trailer with a leaf blower. They're going to clean the area. They're going to sweep up. The locations are really, really kept immaculate and very clean and litter-free.
Any other questions? No? Do you have anything further before we go to public comment?
I don't. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Do the 3 members of the public who are in the audience wish to speak? No, they are nodding their heads. They do not. Does the applicant have anything further before we close this public hearing?
We do not.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great night. Thank you so much.
All right, we are at the end of our public hearings, so we're going to circle back for deliberation. So the first one up is going to be 119 Flagg Road. Mr. Lyons is going to be seated on this item.
So, Mr. Chairman, before you jump into
Yep.
deliberations and vote, I just wanted to point out for the commission's interest, sitting in front of them, we have potential conditions of approval for all of the applications that are here for public hearing tonight. In addition, the two bridge applications have a letter from Dwayne Martin, Director of Community Development, indicating that he has reviewed the applications with respect to our floodplain regulations and has determined that neither project will have a deleterious effect and comply with Section 177.8 for special flood hazard areas. So you have those memos in front of you as well. Let's see, I believe that's it for those items. Regarding item number 10 for 37 Ranger, there's some minor updated architectural plans in front of you that reflect the change that they made regarding the screen porch and the use of helical piles. And then I believe the final item was, this was the public comment from Marcia Parrish. This was actually read into the record the night of, I believe, December 13th. And she asked that we provide the commission with a hard copy of her comments. And so that's what this item is.
Thank you. All right, so up before us then is item number 8. Again, Mr. Lyons is seated on this item. For purposes of discussion, I will entertain a motion on this item.
I'll make a motion to approve with the conditions before us.
Thank you.
Standard set of conditions.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Kaplan.
I appreciate Mr. Pino Turco and the town bringing this before us before it's a safety concern. It's really great that we have town staff and resources that take an interest in keeping these wonderful resources in good condition for our community to enjoy. And I've used this bridge many times. My kids love coming to Westmore Park. It seems like they have a fairly well thought out plan for this to do it without impacting the water course.
Yeah. So, thank you. Mr. Binkhorst.
Nothing further to add.
All right. Any other comment on this item? I concur. I think Westmore is a gem, and I am very pleased that they're addressing this well ahead of time. So I will be voting yes on this item. Let me try your minds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, item passes. Item number 9, Ms. Grisilli will be seated on this item. This is 173 Mountain Road. Do we have a motion on this item for purposes of discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve, including the potential conditions of approval before us.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Binkhorst.
Similar to the comments that Mr. Kaplan made, it's a good application and warrants approval. And nothing further.
All right. Mr. Kaplan.
My only comment would be, I appreciated the discussion that we had with them about accessing the far side and how they were going to go about doing that and using the timber mats. I don't want to put any sort of additional rigid contingencies on approval of the plan, but I didn't know if we should be doing any sort of soft recommendation. I don't want to box them into a corner where they have to do something because we've decreed they need to do it, and then their contractor has an issue with that, and there's maybe a better method that they can't use because we've told them they have to do X. But I also, Mr. Binkhorst and I both were kind of like,
Exactly.
No,
No,
missing here.
I thought that was a really good line of questioning, and what I have in mind is some sort of condition whereby we say, hey, as you explore or as you make a determination as to how best to access the site, if you determine in your determination that additional erosion sedimentation controls are necessary, then proceed.
I mean, my concern with this, I mean, I know Helen, Tom lives in town. I have full confidence that their interests are going to be the best course. My concern is they hire a contractor and, you know, all of a sudden things aren't lining up the way they want. Stuff goes off the rails, and like who, you know, I'm sure they're going to be all over it, but sometimes things happen before you.
We do have a condition that inspections are made by members of their team to make sure that all erosion sedimentation controls are in place and operating as they should be.
But that's per the plan.
That's per the plan, but it's the project in general. It's not just those requirements of the plans.
But it's bi-weekly.
Correct. So we could adjust
It
that.
only takes 4 days.
We could adjust that based on, that's correct. That's correct. So we could adjust the wording of that condition to suggest that they have somebody there.
Could we change the wording something to the effect of an inspection of their team will be performed, you know, prior to commencement of the work being conducted on the far side of the pond, or prior to construction, something.
We could add a condition that the applicant propose access to the far side of the pond and any stream crossings with town staff.
Yes.
In addition to any
I like that.
additional erosion and sedimentation controls that are warranted prior to project start.
Mr. Bickhorst, is that a proposed amendment to your motion?
Oh, absolutely.
Is that a friendly acceptance by the second? All right, that is the current motion. Any other comments?
None.
Nope. All right. Let me try your minds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. 5-0 with Ms. Griselli seated. Item number 10, Mr. Neville will be seated on this item. This is 37 Ranger Lane. Entertain a motion for purposes of discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve with our potential conditions of approval, with one additional one, and that is that the perk tests be completed and the outlets to the stormwater retention structures be adjusted as necessary by town staff.
Okay. Motion with that adjustment. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Bickhorst.
No further discussion.
Mr. Kaplan.
No.
Yes, please.
I'm going to vote no on this because they haven't changed the map. And I understand that the soil scientists and the reports that they have given are the information you would look for to change the map and would be perfectly sufficient. I think I am not comfortable with it being on the map 33 feet for this kind of construction. Because I fully understand, it's just, I'm just not comfortable with that. I believe that it's 102 feet. It's a technicality, but
So would the basis be then that you would be making your assessment based on the existing map?
Yeah.
And based on that, you believe that there are feasible and prudent alternatives?
Well, and yes.
Okay.
And that, and with an understanding that the map is probably unreliable, but it is officially, I feel, what I have to rely on.
Okay. Mr. Bickhorst.
I'd just like to add that I concur that, you know, the map is what it is, but my opinion wouldn't vary, whether it was as the town has mapped it or whether as Mr. Logan mapped it. So, thank you.
No, sorry, you're not seated on this item. Yeah. Any other comment on this item? No, you're not seated on the item either, sorry. Don't make me say that. I hate saying that.
Mr. Neville?
Sorry, this is Mr. Neville. You can whisper him right there. He actually, yeah.
I can talk.
All right, so no further comment? All right, let me try your minds then. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Yay.
All right, 4-1, item passes. And the final item is item number 11. Seated on this will be Mr. Lyons. Do we have a motion on this item for purposes of discussion?
I'll make a motion to approve, including our potential conditions of approval, and
Yeah.
adding a six-month look-back period.
All right,
Oh, we do want to add a 6 month?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do.
let's do it.
I will, I'll second Mr.
Motion and a
Bigton.
second. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Brinkhorst,
Nothing further.
Mr. Lyons.
I'm really interested to see. Okay, I'm getting head shakes.
No,
no,
you're
so
good.
I'm
No,
gonna
you're
stop.
good. You're good.
No,
I thought the head shakes were directed at me. I was like,
You
oh,
go right
okay.
ahead.
I'm talking to the scofflaw over here,
You go right
the
ahead.
ne'er-do-well. You're on the next one.
This is really, really interesting to me, and I'm really excited to see how it works. And I'm gonna vote to support, and I really, really hope this works out. It's such a neat business concept. So I'm rooting for you as well as voting for you. So thank you.
There are two non-standard conditions I put in here just for the consideration of the committee.
And this was contained on your sheet here?
Correct,
So this
yeah.
is-
So it number 3, and that one reads, "The exterior of the proposed trailer shall be kept clear of all donation items and refuse to every extent practicable, both during and after normal business hours." And then the fourth one was, "Service of all water and sanitary systems within the trailer should be performed prior to businesses in the shopping plaza opening to the public, and any vehicle performing said service shall comply with all noise ordinances of the town of West Hartford."
Thank you, Mr. Pudlick. So that is the motion, and we have the second as well, so.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please. Do you have a question, Mr. Lyons?
I don't have a question, sir. I have a statement.
Yes, please.
That it's such a unique business concept. I've been informed that college marketing professor is going to use it as a case study locally. So I think that's some nice.
That is an incredible
some nice
original thought you had there,
Yes,
Mr. Lyons.
I'm full of creative original thoughts. So. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons.
It's nice that you've got influence.
Yeah, that's it.
I did a little hard twist.
Do we have any other comments or questions?
May I just ask
Yes,
who the
please.
second was on that one?
Mr. Lyons is the second.
Mr. Lyons, that's what I thought.
Yep. Yeah, I was, sometimes you look at something and you go, how do they make money? But obviously they do. But they also, how do they make money and do good at the same time? Because that's not easy to do. I was on the board of a daycare, and it was like, whoa, that's some rough realism, But at any rate, I think it's a good location for it too. I actually think that it's a nice test site that would maybe spawn more in some other locations in town. But I think it's a good idea. So, and more importantly, I think it's consistent with our SUP regulations. So, with that, let me try your minds. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, item is approved. All right, we're just gonna separate them in future meetings. Just wanna-
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Sorry about the multimedia system. Next time you come in, that's going to work perfectly.
Do you know the Fettings in Brewster?
No, I do not. Settings, no.
No, okay. Yeah, my family, side of my family is a Fetting family.
I'll read it. I'll ask my wife. She probably does.
All right, man. Hey, thanks
My
for
wife
your
sits on a
presentation.
commission like this in Brewster. She knows a lot more people than I do.
Oh God, she probably knows my sister then. She runs the Cape House real estate
Oh yeah,
agency.
she knows. I'm sure she knows her.
Yeah.
I'll mention your last name. The same
Okay.
last name.
It's Clancy, Katie Clancy.
All right, very
She
good.
probably
That's
knows
it.
her. So,
Thank you so much.
yep, nice talking to you.
That's good.
Have a great night. Thank you.
So the next thing up, so we're going to skip forward to item number 15, upon which Ms. Grisilli will be seated on the vote. But everyone can ask questions until we actually go forward with it. I know, man, that's how it works. That was fun. I liked being yeah. For the what?
There's,
Seems like they did all the work.
Yeah.
There's a significant extra application cost associated with doing a map amendment. It's not insignificant.
Are we talking about Range Road?
Ranger.
Ranger Road?
Yeah.
Because I was 100%, that was the comment I was gonna make.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, I was 100% with you. I felt we shouldn't approve it until they corrected it.
Well, that's why I asked the
It's
question.
close to
Why I asked my
$1,000
question.
in application fees.
How much?
It's close to $1,000 in application fees.
Plus-
Why? Because those were the fees that were determined by the town council.
You were probably on I don't know.
Well, and it's not just the application fees, because you also need the professional services
That's
to
correct.
But they have
go
to hire.
through that. Yeah, they have
did
to
that
hire.
already.
Well, they hired but they have to go through another application process.
So
There's
they
gonna
went
be
through
more.
they went through the, I mean, it's important to do both, but they went through the process that was necessary for them to understand their project
Yeah.
and the potential impacts.
Yeah.
You know, and the added cost of doing the map amendment is great. We wish that everybody would do that, but unfortunately, that's not the case.
And insofar as future applications, right? This is gonna run with. That report is part of their plan.
Yeah.
Right, so I felt comfortable being able to consider that report in my criteria as to whether there's potential wetlands harm. So that's why. But I think you were also justified in
Yes.
making your analysis as well. So I think this is one of those situations, if you do something like they're doing, you run the risk
That's
Yeah.
what I was-
of allowing the members to choose which one they want to go with.
Right, and
So-
it's that's good. It's a good learning experience for us too as staff to when we're advising applicants on how to proceed on these types of applications. You can make them very well aware that they do run a risk there.
Everybody
This
else
is a case
is
study.
fine
This
with
one
it.
today
This
was-
is Gillette better be absent that day.
Yeah. Or like really
think it
lay on
depends
thick
on the
about the
situ-
trees to distract her.
I think it depends on the situation, though, too.
Can I just ask a really rudimentary question again on Ranger?
Sure.
We were 104 feet or 102 feet away from any wetlands impact at all. Why did we even have to vote on it? Why
Portions
did
of the property, well,
review.
first of all, the
Because it's
mapped,
within 150.
the
of
mapped,
that
yeah,
wetland.
first of all, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
150 foot.
but
is
also the
upper limit.
mapped wetland was all over that site.
Yeah, right.
And
Okay.
But it's
the,
the upland review area.
it's the upland review of 150 feet.
All of this is in the upland review area.
Yeah.
only.
And that's it.
Just
So-
how far away
Rookie
is it?
question.
No, that's,
They're all good questions, that's how we all learn.
yeah, but it's sort of like,
The wetland is only very
Flip the
corner of the
corner of
site
the-
according
yeah.
to the town map.
it's not-
It's very corner.
yeah, but sorry, the entire,
The entire property is
you're right,
upland.
Is
in
upland
upland
review, yeah.
review, so.
But it's 33 feet from their proposed
Big.
building.
Yeah, I mean,
There was at one point, someone said something about,
But it would've-
the
I mean, that's
the town map might not be reliable, and I had to sort of like hold back my guffaw, like it's completely unreliable. But it's the one we have to go off of until a soil scientist comes and maps the wetland.
Now we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects.
Yeah, because wetlands can both recede, but also, human actions can create wetlands as well. So it's possible there can be more wetland. There almost never is. Okay, so, please, Mr. Pudlick,
but not all
item number
wetlands are equal.
15,
Yes,
Chick-fil-A.
Mr. Chairman, so number 15 is an application for an SDD amendment filed on behalf of Chick-fil-A to modify their drive-through infrastructure. And the modification is to install a full second drive-through lane. The existing condition it starts out as 2 and then it folds down into 1 as it approaches the building. This is to extend that second lane throughout the entire reach of the drive-through. And what they've stated in their application is that over the course of time since the pandemic, more and more people are utilizing drive-through facilities as opposed to going into the store, and they have seen an extensive increase in customers using their facility, which has caused queuing issues and so on within the context of the parking lot. And so this change will help to alleviate those issues. And so it results in a net loss throughout the whole plaza of 2 parking spaces, which is relatively insignificant in the scope of that plaza. and some minor changes to landscaping and the location of a dumpster and so on. But that's the gist of the application.
Questions?
This will be
Ms. Grisilli?
It probably reduces the length of the lines. That
Yes.
are going way, way.
That's the idea. And
That's the point.
the challenge is that where their drive-through entry is and where the entry is into that section of the plaza isn't separated by that much pavement. And so if you get a queue there, it ends up potentially blocking the entry into the area where Aldi's is.
Though I suppose if you talk to a traffic engineer, it's like, if you widen the highway,
Yeah.
you just get more cars. But I don't know if that works with.
I'm not sure that it applies in the
drive-throughs.
drive-through
I don't know if that's
setting.
how it works. Questions? Any other questions?
It is a clogged up area.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is like, adding a few more timbers to an already raging fire. Yeah. Except on Sundays. Do we have any other questions?
Refresh my recollection, wasn't it gonna be a Chick-fil-A and another restaurant with it in that?
To the best of my knowledge, no. The Chick-fil-A was the
Just
only,
Chick-fil-A?
yeah, that was the only pad that they had
You're
approved there.
thinking of the one that's going to be on Kane Street.
Oh, yeah,
They-
yeah.
they came
Across from
before
the
us.
new
Yes.
Starbucks? Yeah.
Yeah, so this one is existing, it's been there for a number of years now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fine.
I'll make
Miss, what's that?
if you want me, I have a couple of things I could.
Yeah, you got
could add
questions?
If it helps
Yeah.
for the record. Not
Sure.
really questions, but more comments. I know the franchise owner pretty well, and he is a phenomenal franchisee. I think that's the term. And his staff does an incredible job of moving cars through there, even as it's set up now. I don't know that I've ever seen a more efficiently or better run drive-through. So I think, I just don't have any concerns about this adding to traffic at all. I think it will subtract traffic. It is a brutal parking lot, but it's, I think this will help alleviate things a little bit, so.
Any other questions or? All right, so let's just, for purposes of discussion then, entertain a motion on this item. Again, Ms. Grisilli is seated on this item. The nature of this motion would be to recommend approval or to not recommend approval to the town council.
I move we recommend approval.
Second.
Motion and second. Ms. Gillette?
We need more Chick-fil-A. That's all there is to it.
Mr. Kaplan?
We certainly need to do whatever we can to help the parking and flow of cars there, so.
Yeah.
I think that, do what we can.
Well, it's even better. We don't have to do it. They're doing it.
Well,
They're paying
Yeah.
for
they're doing it,
Yeah,
but
they're
doing it.
we're recommending that we allow them to do it.
Yes, Ms. Grisilli?
It may well be a safety issue also because the long line of cars going causes anger and
Yeah, potential human on vehicle issues if you've got
Yeah.
people in the Aldi area and, yeah.
hungry people need to move faster.
That's right. That's right. I need my chicken. Yeah. I do not like drive-through as a concept in West Hartford. I was not in favor of the changes that were made. I was not in favor of this, but I voted yes for it because it was the law of the land, and they met all of their criteria. They meet all their criteria here. I still think drive-throughs, cell phones and drive-throughs are removing human interaction, and I think that was one of the things that I would crow about with West Hartford is we got a few quirky things, and one of them is that we don't have many drive-throughs. This is an exception to our general rule, which is you only have drive-through for like prescriptions. We make people get out of their cars and go into a restaurant and talk to a human being. But it's in an industrial area, and it's not really a pretty place to be otherwise. So, But anyway, I'm still voting yes on this one. I do not in general. I do not support drive-throughs in general. Anyway, all right, anything else? Let me try your minds. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed. Item is recommended for approval. So item number 16, ordinance concerning group childcare homes. When we vote, Mr. Neville will be seated on this item.
This is a change at the state level that took us by surprise. I don't believe there was really any chatter in the planning listserv where anybody was really paying too much attention to this. Essentially what it is the state has several different tiers for daycare facilities. The one that was sort of the least restrictive, and we have several of them in town, are family daycare homes, which are permitted as an accessory use in any residential building, in any residential zone. And there's really no approval process associated with those, and they were to accommodate up to 6 children. This was a second tier, group child care homes, and this tier allows up to 12, between 6 and 12 kids. And the state determined that based on challenges that people were having across the state in finding daycare facilities that were affordable, that they wanted to expand family daycare type facilities, or the ability of other types of facilities to exist in a residential zone with fewer roadblocks. And so essentially we've been told by the state that we've got to treat group child care homes, again, up to 12 kids, essentially the same as we treat family daycare homes, which is to say without any real regulation at all. And that they are permitted to locate in any residential zone or any other zone without any additional permitting associated with that. And so the larger category, which we still have, are more traditional daycare centers, like Lollipop Tree and Night Hall and some of those, that are still restricted by special use permit, and are subject to other sets of regulations, pursuant to section, which I don't have right in front of me. I'm an idiot. Oh, yeah, I don't remember the code number off the
So
top of my
just to
head.
be clear, that
Yeah.
this is a recommended change pursuant to state law, which is requiring us to make this change.
That's correct. Yeah,
correct?
it is a requirement. We're just trying to stay consistent with state law, which we really have no choice in doing anyway.
Right. Okay.
And so, and so this is the way you decided to structure that?
Correct.
Have a category.
Okay.
Well,
Do we have
you have it.
do we have any questions on the ESTA ordinance, proposed ordinance?
I did have one question. It doesn't really define what a residentially developed property is. Like, it's not residentially zoned.
A residentially developed property is any property that has a residential use on it. And
Any residential.
Right, so that could-
Single resident in a,
exactly, and
huge
that could be
commercial building.
that could be a residential use in an industrial zone or a business zone or a residential zone.
okay.
Interesting.
So it's very broad
Yeah.
and restrictive. actually.
Provided the underlying zone permits child daycare centers, which I think they all do,
They
right?
all do.
Yeah, because it's across the board.
Yeah.
there. Yeah. Okay.
This is kind of like a church or a plant nursery, isn't it?
It sort of is, but it's more restrictive in the number of children. So most of the church ones, they have, much larger numbers of children.
Can you clarify though? Does it require a special use permit?
Which? The larger one?
No, the child care. The child care.
The more traditional child care facilities will continue to require a special use permit.
Okay.
So those that are defined as group child care homes will not.
Okay.
So what is the difference between the two? You've got 12 kids in a group care home and 12 kids.
Well, if you've got only 12, then you can fit under this category. If you've got
But you
more than
might
that,
not be in a residence. You might be in the side of the old YMCA.
that's true.
I mean,
yeah.
so what makes them different?
You're operating one
the
out of a
number of-
residence
number
with
of
12 or less
kids?
kids.
Yeah.
Is it
And then
just,
you have no-
hey, we're small enough, I don't have to deal with all this these shenanigans?
Correct. Yeah, they were trying to make them as
Like rebuilding
seamless
toilets
as
that are only
possible.
this tall and stuff like that?
Ms. Cristilli.
Did they stipulate that there had to be more guidance, more faculty?
No.
No.
Really? So if I can do 6, I can do 12?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah. There is additional. There are additional controls that the state imposes.
Oh, I mean, there's like three
Yeah,
overlapping state agencies.
There's
that are gonna
additional
regulate
controls
that,
that the state imposes in addition to our local
Early
health district.
childhood, DPH, DCF, like they're gonna have all kinds of other requirements.
Yeah, so it's really just a removal of the zoning roadblocks that would
Yeah.
typically be in place.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
Mr. Big Horse.
We're not ruling on how they operate.
That's correct.
Negative.
It's just the ordinance
Yeah.
change.
Okay.
Okay.
Both before and after that, we don't jurisdictionally have any say in that.
Right.
I just had one additional comment. Number 3 at the top of page 2. First of all, it's child day care as opposed to child day are. There's a slight missing C in there. And second, I don't consider that paragraph to be a sentence. I've read that 5 times. I just don't see it.
I don't disagree. That's the way.
I don't even know what the hell it means.
That's the way the sentence was structured by our corporation counsel's office. So we will review with them.
Please.
Which one?
Which one?
Which line?
Read this paragraph.
Oh, sorry.
First of all, it's run on if nothing else.
They are centers which are.
We're such a good.
It was going really well, and then went off the rails about halfway through.
It does, right?
Yeah.
We will take a look at that.
Yeah, she needs to look at this because it's like it makes it look like it's a list, right? Because she uses the word should again, right? Shall not be required. Blah, blah, blah. Should renewal of a special permit be required to continue existing use, provided that? Nah, yeah, you're just losing me here.
Can we make that a condition of our recommendation
Shall not
for
be
approval?
required to comply
Did they
with
fix?
the subsection.
Did they fix that?
To continue the existing use. Provided that upon expansion of the use and or. Yeah, this lawyer wrote this. I've done worse. Done much worse. Sometimes on purpose.
But you get awards for that.
Yeah.
You get plaques.
Yeah, yeah. It's like I'll just be like, this is impenetrable. Okay.
I hope you flick the paper. Like
Yeah, I do sometimes. Yeah, I was like, get through this one, Judge. Okay. All right, but insofar as Gordon,
Yes.
insofar as the concerns over that is that.
It's confusing and I don't know what it says.
All right. So before we go to a motion, though, is there?
Do I have a revision to it? No.
I don't know. I
No.
I do think that we may just. I think it's sort of like,
Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Yeah.
Well, I think we have to thumbs up it, don't we? I mean, and we already have this. The state has already said, like, this is happening.
Oh yeah. There's no question this
So-
has to happen, but this version of it doesn't have to go forward. This version
Right.
of the. So we can, we could say, in terms of. If we voted no, we could send a note as to, hey, here's why we voted no. We think this last paragraph has to get amended. And the town council can tell us to, go punch a sack and, move on. Or they might make the change. I mean, they're definitely going to be like, planning and zoning.
This is worth voting no to make the point, change the wording of
If
the
we vote
paragraph.
yes, they can still fix it, right?
Yes, they can. So I think a yes vote with a, hey, this last paragraph is very difficult to read.
With a condition.
Yeah. Because then they don't have, it doesn't have to come back to us. They don't have to refer it back to us. They can make the change right in the room.
Yes.
So I like it. All right, so seated on this is Mr. Neville. So just for purposes of just further discussion, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
I will make a motion to recommend approval with the stipulation that Section 2, Paragraph 3 be revised to be
Readable.
readable.
For readability.
And
Yeah.
in addition to adding the C in day R centers.
Is it? It's
Yes, they
section
are.
3 or
Yes,
4?
they are.
No.
It said, no, 4
Oh,
is
daycare
out.
centers.
It's
Yeah.
3.
Oh, it's 4.
Yeah, it's now 3. It becomes
Yeah.
3.
And it's in Section 2.
Yep. Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
Nothing further.
Discussion. Any further discussion? Nope. Seeing none, let me try our minds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Item passes or is recommended. The executive session will not occur tonight. Do we have a town planner's report?
There are no town planners reports tonight?
Information items?
Nothing?
Mr. Padla, could you just let them know what you guys were letting me know that there may be an issue with the February 5th meeting? Or do we just want to leave that alone?
Well, I can say that, as you could see this evening, we had some challenges with the multimedia system, and we've had those challenges repeatedly over the past several months. So the town will be replacing the multimedia system in this room the last week in January, the first week in February. So this room is essentially going to be off limits during that time.
So does that mean that could actually push meetings by a week?
That is, yes. And so we are looking at February 12th, which is a Monday, as a potential special meeting date.
All right.
Instead of the February 5th meeting date.
Can we take action on that now, or do you want us to wait?
No, we don't need to until we know that it's unavailable, and then.
Yep. So we are just in the process of confirming availability of this room on that date. I believe we're going to be okay.
So at this point, if this room's available that date, you are going to move the meeting,
That's correct. And you folks will receive an email from staff indicating that this needs to happen and asking for your availability.
Which we might not mind anyway, because we will have just had a meeting 2 weeks prior, on the 17th.
I
Yes,
just have
Mr.
one
Forrest.
question of order with respect to the executive session. Do we have to make a motion not to have it, or just since
Not,
it's on the agenda?
to the best of my
nothing, it
knowledge,
just
no.
goes
Yeah.
away?
So executive session, we even if it's on the agenda, we have to vote to go into executive
Sure.
session. So
Okay.
if we decline to
Okay.
vote, then we
I'm
don't go
sorry,
into
so I don't
executive
understand,
session.
why are we not going into executive session?
Executive session will be the purposes of the Corporation Council explaining the rules associated with the intervening parties petition.
Uh-huh.
And we don't even have a memo in front of us right now. So it was decided that it would be better to have them give us the memo, let us live with the memo for a little while, and then do the executive session on the day we're actually voting, so that it's
Okay.
fresh in our minds and we know
Alright.
exactly what we're doing.
Okay.
So,
Are we getting something else from the intervener?
no.
No.
Corporation
Are
Council.
Closed. Hearing is closed.
Right, hearing, that's what I thought. Hearing is closed.
Correct.
So what is the intervener's involvement with the 1700 application at this
There will be 2 votes on that night. The first vote will be the vote as to whether the statutory requirements in 22A-19 have been met. So that's going to be an up or down vote, right? A no vote will tank the subsequent.
Then we can't even proceed.
Get correct, because of the overlap between the two.
I'm sorry, what is the substance of, what did you?
What'd you just say?
There will be 2 votes on that night.
Write that last paragraph on that?
There will be 2 votes on that night. The first vote will be
Right.
on the intervening party's petition.
Right.
So if it is found that the burden is met, right, under the statute, 22A-19, which the Corporation Council will explain to you in her memorandum and in
What
our
burden?
executives. Meaning,
I thought we already
did the evidence meet the requirements of that statute to make the determination that there is I don't have the language in front of me, but the environmental impact is such, right?
Right.
That it cannot go forward as designed, right? Then that stops it in its tracks.
Yeah.
We don't vote.
You couldn't vote on the substance of the application if you find that their intervening party has presented enough evidence to suggest that, yes, those things that they claim will happen are likely to happen.
Now,
And so that must be a feeling of the commission that yes, the applicant has the intervening party has demonstrated those things based on their testimony.
So
I
basically, the
would
first
maybe
vote is
modify
that-
what you just said there. I don't think it's just based on their testimony. I think it's based on the entire presentation. So if the applicant made a hash of it
it's their
and
case.
actually,
But, so we will be
It's
voting
not just
on
the intervener's
their
presentation.
case.
Correct.
It's the entire
And-
presentation.
I want to avoid, and this is a conversation we can have in 2 weeks, but to be clear, I want to avoid language speaking to whether or not the intervener met their burden, because I don't think it's clear from the statute whether they have a burden or not. So it's best that we just avoid speaking to whether or not they met their burden. It seems to me that the statute leaves it open enough that the intervener could sit on their hands and say and do nothing beyond their petition, but the application itself
Is
could be so bad
so faulty
that we would make that determination.
and we would be voting for the intervener as opposed to for the applicant, which we would do normally by just voting against the applicant.
Well, I think that the standards in the statute and what they're claiming in their intervening petition are different set of standards.
They're overlapping, but
they're
let me-
related, but there are additional standards that you would need to find as a wetland agency to approve their wetland application. Should you find that the intervening party's application didn't hold up?
So they have to make an allegation, which we've said that they've met their burden of alleging an unreasonable pollution, impairment, or destruction of the public trust in air, water, or other natural resources of the state. So they've made that allegation. They've met their burden to just make the allegation, right? They haven't met their burden to prove that thing actually
And
exists.
that's what we voted to allow them to be
Correct.
interveners.
So the standard that we're going to be voting on is in any administrative licensing or other proceeding, the agency shall consider the alleged unreasonable pollution, impairment, or destruction of the public trust in air, water, or other natural resources. And no conduct shall be authorized or approved which does or is reasonably likely to have had such effect as long as, considering all relevant surrounding circumstances and factors, there is a feasible and prudent alternative consistent with reasonable requirements of public health, safety, and welfare. So we have to make a determination that an unreasonable pollution, impairment, or destruction of the public trust, blah, 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 has happened, right? So we have to make it as a wetlands agency. We are not a mini deep, right? We're making it within the context of a wetlands application and a wetlands presentation, okay? But we have to make that determined first.
But do we do that based on solely their testimony for that first vote?
I do not believe that we should base it on just the applicant's testimony. I don't believe that this statute puts a burden on them.
Okay.
I think, like I said, I think they
the
can make the
totality
allegations,
of the-
meet that standard, and just put it in front of the agency and then sit on their hands
Yeah.
and let the application rise or fall.
So
on its own.
they could have provided additional substantiating evidence to support their claims. They could have brought in their own experts to refute the claims of the applicant's experts. There could be a whole host of different things that they could have done to bolster the record.
Or
But-
not done.
Or not,
Or not done anything at all.
well, yeah.
Okay, fair. I got it.
Yeah, so I think there's interpretations of the statute that could say they do have a burden, but I think the statute is very poorly written, and I think it could cut the other way. I wish we had Andrea at the table, because I actually think she's seen this before, but we can hit her up before the special meeting to get a little
So that will be the first vote,
correct.
is on that.
Correct. Lives or die on that vote.
And
Lives
if
or
we
dies.
decide that the interveners have made a terrific case and they win the day, that's the end of the story.
That's
If
the
we
end of story.
decide that the application has not, it's basically what we've, it's what we've seen, the entirety of the evidence shows that there's an unreasonable pollution, impairment, or destruction of the public trust. and there is a feasible and prudent alternative. There's two pieces to this that's gonna, and you know, Gina's gonna go over all this with us.
Okay, now
Yeah.
I have an appointment to talk with Todd later in the week over my stinky little questions. Who's the feasible and prudent alternative? To who?
What do you mean?
I mean, we keep saying.
Well, what
to
kind of
present-
alternatives?
Yeah, is it,
Yeah.
you know, you present a feasible alternative. Well, you are a developer coming into what in effect will be a blank slate scenario should you prevail. You can build anything. You can build a factory.
Well,
You can build an electrical plant.
feasible.
So I don't understand. That's not feasible. It's and they could say, well, we have to have 7,000 people living in this one apartment building, or is it economically?
She won't be on the vote. Feasible and prudent are two things, right? So they could end. It's within the discretion of this body to determine whether it is.
But feasible to who? Do you understand what I'm saying? Is when any developer says, oh, well, like the guys tonight on Ranger Lane, they looked at all feasible and prudent alternatives and said that this was the best because they wanted the flat land that was farther away from the wetlands
Right, but
to be there for a playscape.
Look, give you a good
Well-
example. Lou Wise. You remember that application?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lou was like, this is the only feasible. We were like, the hell it is. You can do this, this, and this. So no, you have not met your burden. There are more feasible and prudent alternatives to what you have presented to us. So they may try to blow sunshine up our skirt, but it's our burden to look at this application and say, no. There actually are other alternatives, and you have not met your burden.
I think the lens, is, at least as it relates to the wetland regulations, is there a feasible and prudent alternative that would have a less impactful,
Yes.
result on the wetlands?
It really doesn't matter whether it's a Willy Wonka's chocolate factory or a shack.
Right, and so in this case, their direct wetland impacts are limited to the replacement of an outfall, and that's it. So is there a feasible
All right,
and prudent alternative to that?
Yeah, we're treading on.
We're actually talking about the
We're
application.
getting into
So I would, we can entertain a discussion in general about our responsibilities as a commission, but.
But so, all right, so we don't have to agree with their feasible alternative.
Hell no. Because look,
Feasible alternative, because it just strikes me whenever an applicant comes up with, oh yeah, we looked at all feasible alternatives, it's like, well, yeah, if you want to build this exact building in this exact spot, then you couldn't build
No,
it.
I mean, but feasible and prudent are,
driveway.
you noticed, I don't know if you noticed at the hearing, but it's like those opposing the application are going to lean into what's feasible, right? And they're going to avoid prudence, right? Because they're going to be like, you could do this. It's going to cost you 3 times as much money. It's going to require you to put, a billion helical piles in it, that may not be prudent, right? So those are two different things.
All right, now explain this to me. That may not be prudent, but when a developer comes in and wants to change everything, he wants to get rid of what's there, build something new. And in some cases, he even wants to change the zone because you aren't allowed to do.
You're only looking
office
at the
building.
wetland implications and the
Well,
feasible and prudent
but this-
alternatives that are associated with that.
But you're going to build this thing that is that big. Well, when you're a hammer, everything's a nail. You shouldn't have bought that property.
Well,
You shouldn't have decided, I want to build a factory in a wetlands. And don't tell me that they had a factory with the pottery mill 250 years ago.
There is
Do you know what I mean?
there is an alternative that we discussed this in executive session with Gina.
yeah, I think this has
we are-
been good, but I think we need to.
That might be prudent and feasible.
Yeah, but also I think frankly, a sit down with.
I just feel like I'm just kind of dense about it.
No, it is, and feel free to have a discussion with Todd. I think
will.
that
I
might be
just-
helpful. But as Brian said, it is with respect to direct impacts to the wetlands.
Yeah. All right, that's good.
Okay,
Anything else? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed, all right. We got